Chapter 691. Han Fei jumped into the mouth of the spring, and he felt terrible immediately. He felt that his whole body was about to be frozen. Han Fei immediately circulated his spiritual energy, and only then did he manage to relieve the coldness. Was the seabed at the bottom of this spring? Han Fei wasn't sure if it was the seabed because he couldn't even see a shell. All he could see was blue and white. In the bitterly cold water, the bottom of the water was either blue or white, which could easily make people lose their sense of direction. With a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. "Girl, look for Tango for me." Little White rubbed Han Fei's cheek affectionately and then jumped out with a swish. Little White was already a level 38 spirit-swallowing fish and had grown more and more beautiful. Her long tail and fins were like fluttering ribbons. She was a pretty good fish girl. Little Black became colder and colder. Seeing that there were no enemies around, he didn't bother to run. Han Fei chased all the way and immediately found that the space under the spring was larger than he imagined. After a while, a large amount of ice had emerged from the water. Han Fei was dumbfounded. "Are you crazy? Why are there ice cubes coming out here?" Besides, the bottom of the water was unreasonably cold. It was not the coldness of the temperature, but a kind of coldness from the soul. Swoosh! Suddenly, beside Han Fei, Little Black shot out like a sharp arrow. He drew a shadow in the water, and Little White in front of him ran back like a phantom. But in the bottom of the water, a black shadow with a long tail suddenly emerged and seemed to want to whip Little White. However, the black shadow didn't seem to expect Little White to be so fast. Not only did it fail, but it also angered Little Black. Han Fei also accelerated and rushed over. "How dare you slap my daughter? Did I give you any face?" However, Han Fei could only see a black shadow running away quickly at the same speed as him. "A half-mermaid? Is it here to snipe me?" Han Fei shook his head. "No. It should be here to harass me." Immediately, Han Fei said to Little White, "Girl, don't be afraid. Let's ignore it and keep swimming forward." Little Black had already chased out, but seeing that the other party ran too far away, Little Black didn't bother to chase after it. With a whoosh, it ran back. This time, Han Fei didn't let Little White swim so fast. He had been following the half-mermaid. He wanted to see how the half-mermaid could stop him. However, as he swam, he realized that something was wrong. More and more half-mermaids appeared. Especially when a half-mermaid rushed over, Han Fei was speechless. This was not the half-mermaid that had just escaped, nor was it a half-mermaid that entered the secret realm with him, but a hero soul, similar to the one in the undersea city. A string of information emerged in Han Fei's eyes. Name: Half-Mermaid Heroic Soul. Introduction: the belief that a powerhouse protected when they were alive, and the obsession did not dissipate after death. As long as there were intruders, they would once again fight to protect their beliefs. Level: 43. Quality: Undead. Contains spiritual energy greater than 3,996 points. Collectible: Immortal Chi, Unabsorbable. Why half-mermaids? Attach. Little Gold and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp attached to him at the same time. Around Han Fei, the million knife art had already swept out, because he found that a large number of half-mermaid hero souls were charging at him. Puff. 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 After all, they were only level 43 creatures, and these half-mermaid hero souls were not powerful. Under the 10,000 returning blades, not a single one of them could withstand it. But Han Fei was puzzled. Why did so many half-mermaids die here? Even the hero souls came out. What are they guarding? Back then, the undying heroic soul of the undersea city was guarding that city. That was the death of a race, so the hero souls were born. But why here? Did these half-mermaids die in large numbers to protect something? But this snow god's temple was clearly the territory of humans. Even if there were hero souls, they should be human hero souls, right? Han Fei was full of curiosity. But after a while, he found that the depth of the water was gradually becoming shallower. Is there land? After a while, when Han Fei broke out of the water, he was shocked. In his field of vision, there was a huge ancient tree. It was almost a kilometer high, and the branches and leaves were spread out. However, the tree was obviously dead. All the branches and leaves seemed to have been frozen, and there was a layer of white snow covering them. Just by looking at the scenery, it was truly magnificent. However, Han Fei was not in the mood to care about this at the moment. After taking back Little Black and Little White, Han Fei looked around and found that he was still in an indoor space. However, this indoor space was larger than he imagined. And the place he was in was an island covered with ice and snow. This big tree was the only eye-catching place on this island. Bam! On the other side of the giant tree, Han Fei heard a violent sound. Who else could fight here except for Tang Gu and the half-mermaids? As soon as Han Fei ran under the tree, he found that ice crystals seemed to be falling from above his head. Who's up there? Han Fei didn't care so much. He didn't stop and rushed to the other side of the tree. As soon as he passed by, he turned his head and found that a half-mermaid was nailed to the tree, and its entire chest and abdomen were nailed to pieces. In the field, a half-mermaid in a golden battle suit was sitting on the ground, spiritual energy surging on the surface of its body as if it was healing. The other 3 half-mermaids were confronting Tang Gu. All 4 of them were injured. Tang Ji's entire right arm was dripping with blood, and the ultra-quality battle suit on his body had been damaged. Among them, there was a half-mermaid, which was the one that Han Fei had just resurrected with the immortal seal. At this moment, seeing Han Fei coming, it looked frightened and looked at its companion. When Tang Gu saw Han Fei, the corners of his mouth curled up and he thought to himself, "I've won this battle." Han Fei chuckled and stepped out, activating the majestic mystic spell and 10,000 knives in one. Like a pear blossom rainstorm, a flash of white light appeared in the air. "Are you all right?" Tang Gu took a breath. "I'm fine. If it weren't for that bastard Su Mo, these people would have been dead at this moment." The half-mermaid heavenly talent who was sitting cross-legged suddenly bounced up, not intending to fight Tang Gu or Han Fei, but directly prepared to run away. The remaining 2 half-mermaids seemed to have accepted their fate. One rushed at Tang Gu, and the other blocked Han Fei. However, Han Fei didn't care about the half-mermaid who blocked him at all and just rushed at them with the million-knife art. As for himself, he clenched his fists, and surging energy burst out of his body in an instant. Seeing that the half-mermaid heavenly talent was about to run away, the sacrificing punch broke out and appeared directly more than 800 meters away. Hiss! The half-mermaid seemed to strike with a golden harpoon. As a result, although the fist power was weakened a bit, the sacrificing punch was still powerful. But the momentum of the sacrificing punch didn't stop and it was imprinted on its body. The moment the amulet appeared, it was shattered. Although the divine battle suit burst out with a powerful counterforce, the half-mermaid's blood was already splashing in the sky. However, to Han Fei's astonishment, although the half-mermaid was almost covered in blood, it still struggled to fly into the water and disappeared. Puff! The half-mermaid in front of Tang Gu was nailed to death. Puff! 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 How could this prodigal in front of Han Fei be a match for him? In less than 20 breaths of time, he was hanged alive. Han Fei didn't chase after him. He drank a mouthful of candle dragon blood, walked to Tang Gu in 2 or 3 steps, and cast the divine healing technique on him. "How are you? Are you all right?" Tang Gu shook his head. "Not a big problem. However, I used too much force in my right hand. Even if I recover, I'm afraid I can only exert about 70% of my strength." Han Fei took out a pile of spiritual fruits, held 2 energy fruits in his mouth, and handed the rest to Tang Gu. "That's enough. Let's recover to 70% first. This time, the sea demons are doomed. If there are no accidents, including the one that just ran away, there are at most 7 of them." Tang Gu was stunned. "What about the others?" Han Fei nodded. Killed them. If they hadn't hidden a half-mermaid heavenly talent in their team, they would have been killed. Moreover, Meng Yi was no fool. Although they might still be on the same level in terms of battle prowess, he still had an obvious advantage. Although they may still be equal in combat power, he won't let go of such an opportunity. So, now we humans have the upper hand. With that said, Han Fei suddenly asked, where is Su Mo? Is he dead? Tang Gu looked up at the top of the tree. He went up, but he seems to be in trouble. Just now, a strange power broke out on the tree, and then Su Mo was silent. Han Fei frowned. Is he up there? Tang Gu nodded. Yes, that Su Mo shouldn't be a human. Han Fei had guessed that it was another fish disguised in the human world. However, at this moment, both he and Tang Gu were under the tree. Unless Su Mo didn't come down, he would definitely die. Han Fei smiled. Don't worry. He can't run away as long as he is up there. You recover first and then go up to find him. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 692. Under the tree, Han Fei and Tang Gu were both recovering. Although Han Fei slashed left and right just now, in fact, each slash consumed a lot of energy, and his energy and spiritual energy were all used up in the blink of an eye. Such an intense battle was only suitable for use when there were few people. If there were too many half-mermaids, Han Fei wouldn't dare to use it like this. Also, Han Fei could kill several people in a row because he had the advantage of the air-breaking strike. How could ordinary people know that Han Fei had mastered the 1,000-mile fishing art to this extent? Such a huge knife light flashed directly at his face. No matter how many trump cards he had, he couldn't resist such a terrifying attack. The wound on Tang Ji's arm recovered, and he looked up at the tree. How did you find out that there was something wrong with Su Mo? Han Fei said with a smile, I didn't find anything at all. It's mainly because Su Mo doesn't think before he speaks. But several times, the signs in his words are actually not good for us. I have to wonder what he's up to. Tang Gu said, I'm afraid even Senior Liang Tian is wrong. I don't know what method he used to disguise himself as a human being and sneak into our human society. Han Fei curled his lips. So, no matter who he is, we have to be careful. But why did he go to the tree? Is there anything on the tree? Tang Ji's face darkened. When I just came in, there was a strange light on the tree. Su Mo must have a high status. While I was fighting with these half-mermaids, he rushed up and snatched the opportunity. Han Fei frowned. How did you get in? Have you fought in the Colosseum? Tang Gu paused for a moment. What Colosseum? Han Fei briefly told him his experience. Of course, he didn't elaborate on the fact that he was almost possessed. He just reminded Tang Gu not to be tempted when he heard about the soul-splitting technique. After a while, Su Mo still didn't come down from the tree. In the seawater, no one continued to come out. Han Fei couldn't help but say, I'll go up and have a look. Tang Gu nodded. I'll go with you. Han Fei thought for a moment. Tang Ji's combat power was not weak. When he first came in, he should be fighting 4 people alone. Now, he only lost 30% of his combat power, which was already very good. It must be noted that if he were to fight 4 half-mermaids in their peak state, he might not be any better than Tang Gu if he didn't use some trump cards. The two of them were like agile monkeys, jumping and moving on the giant ice tree. Unexpectedly, there was no obstruction at all. When the two of them jumped to the top of the tree, they saw Su Mo sitting cross-legged on a thick branch with his eyes closed. Beside Su Mo was a crystal coffin, and inside the coffin was a human that had been frozen for an unknown period of time. He wore dark blue battle robes, and a third eye had opened between his eyebrows. Tang Gu had just taken out the halberd, when Han Fei stopped him. Wait a minute. Something's wrong. Han Fei frowned. He wasn't sure if this was an opportunity. Logically speaking, even if there was a fortuitous encounter in a place like the Snow God's palace, it shouldn't be so easy to obtain. Come to think of it, other than the soul parasite they encountered when they first entered the arcane realm and the snow giant outside the palace, they hadn't encountered any obstacles until now. The only one they encountered was the bastard who wanted to possess him. Only that level of danger was worthy of a magnificent palace like the Snow God's palace. But now, this ice tree only looked shocking, but in fact, there was no danger at all from bottom to top. Han Fei was quite suspicious. The person in the coffin had sealed himself. But in this world of ice and snow, was there any difference between putting himself in a coffin and lying outside? If this guy was really going to be silent, he would have set up some difficulty settings, right? Otherwise, if someone were to find him countless years later, it would be strange if they didn't open his coffin and search for his fortuitous encounters. Han Fei's heart trembled. So, this coffin must have been deliberately thrown here. The person sleeping in the coffin was deliberately waiting for someone to open it. Han Fei couldn't help but think so. He had been fooled once. There was no reason for him to be fooled again. Tang Gu frowned. Look, Sumo's aura is changing. Han Fei nodded. I know. Let me do it. With a casual wave of the blood-drinking knife, a knife light cut at Su Mo who was sitting cross-legged. However, the knife light was blocked by an invisible barrier 3 inches in front of Su Mo. Han Fei's knife light didn't even shake him at all. Han Fei's eyelids twitched and the blood-drinking knife slashed again. However, this time, it was no longer aimed at Su Mo, but at the ancient human in the ice coffin. However, with this slash, the lid of the coffin suddenly flew up, and a magical array broke out, blocking Han Fei's slash. Han Fei shouted, "You smash the coffin, and I'll kill Su Mo." Immediately, Han Fei asked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and little fatty to attach to him, activated the majestic mystic spell, and used the draw technique with all his strength. It was a simple and unadorned slash, but it was also an extremely terrifying slash. Clang! In the array, Su Mo suddenly opened his eyes, and there was a faint blue light in his eyes. A complicated array actually blocked Han Fei's draw technique. However, how terrifying was Han Fei's strength when he was in an all-out attack. As an advanced dangling fisher, he dared to fight a peak-level hanging fisher head-on. At this moment, Han Fei's strength had jumped to the level of an intermediate hanging fisher. Even a peak-level hanging fisher didn't dare to easily block this knife attack. Kacha! The array was broken, and a blue light suddenly appeared on Sumo's head. In the blue light, a new eye grew out. A small white sword condensed from that eye and collided with the draw technique again. Bam! The draw technique collapsed and Han Fei took 2 steps back. On the other side, Tang Ji's strongest halberd technique had already struck down. The terrifying power directly crushed the ice coffin. However, the body was grabbed by Sumo's big hand and flew back. Han Fei said coldly, "He is not Su Mo. He has been possessed." Han Fei was very shocked and angry. He knew that there was no free lunch in the world. Su Mo couldn't be so strong. Otherwise, he would have been discovered long ago. He must have become stronger in this short period of time just now. Tang Gu pointed his spear at Su Mo. "Who is it?" Han Fei shrugged. "If I guessed correctly, it should be a prehistoric human. Don't you think so, brother?" Su Mo's eyes flickered. "How do you know? Also, you are not from the Sea Clan. How long has it been since the Age of Doom?" Tang Gu was shocked. "It's really not Su Mo," Han Fei sneered. "What is the Age of Doom? I've never heard of it. However, the Snow God's temple doesn't look like a good guy. You dig holes everywhere, trying to possess me and be reborn." The man's face was gloomy. "Human beings, why kill each other?" Han Fei scoffed. "The body you are using now is that of a human being. Didn't you still kill him?" That person said indifferently, "All of this was prepared for the sea race. We never expected that human beings would return. Besides, this body is not human. It can only be said to be half human. He is an ominous man who combines human beings and the Sea Clan. Han Fei sneered. Keep pretending. Ominous man, do you still want to possess me? The man took a few steps back, grabbed at the void with one hand, and an ice-long sword appeared in his hand. The third eye between his eyebrows flickered. What do you want? Han Fei said with a smile, I don't know when the age of doom you mentioned is. However, if you want, you can go back to the human settlement with us. Impossible. The man reacted very quickly. He sneered. The river of time is endless. If I appear in today's human society, I will definitely be caught by the strong. At that time, my life and death will no longer be under my control. Han Fei grinned. It's fine if you don't go back. Anyway, the person you possess is not a good person. However, hand over the soul-splitting technique, or I will still kill you. The man frowned. Do you know the soul-splitting technique? Han Fei sneered. I know a lot. Don't you want to save the master of the snow god's temple? Hand over the soul-splitting technique and I will let you go. The man's eyes flashed. Impossible. The soul-splitting technique is the supreme soul skill of the snow god's temple. How can I give it to you? As for the master, she has already died. How can I save her? Han Fei pretended to be surprised. Ha! Had he fallen? Then you can die too. Go! Han Fei shouted, and he and Tang Gu immediately launched an attack. The terrifying combat power of the two directly tore a large area of ice branches. Tang Ji's halberd was like a dragon, splitting mountains and rivers. Han Fei slashed out 100 knives at the same time. The man leaped into the air and jumped down from the tree. As his eyebrows flickered, hundreds of creatures immediately appeared on the ground, roaring and soaring into the sky. The 9-star chain shot out and clasped at the man. Tang Gu was even fiercer. With a dragon roar, he slashed down with the halberd in his hand. Wait a minute. The man was horrified. This body is too weak. Any one of the two people on the opposite side is stronger than this body, and he can't fight back at all. Besides, he has just recovered and his soul is not stable. In such a fierce battle, he will be hacked to death in less than 10 minutes. Han Fei screamed, what are you waiting for? If you don't cooperate, I will kill you now. Tang Gu had already pointed his halberd at the man. Although it was blocked by an array, the ice and snow creatures leaping up around him were immediately smashed by the huge airwaves. Han Fei used the draw technique again and directly smashed the man's array. Boom! The man was smashed straight into the ground, blood spurting wildly from his mouth. I can give you the soul-splitting technique. Tang Gu withdrew his halberd and said coldly, don't play tricks. If I do it again, whether you give it to me or not, I will kill you directly. Second. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 693. Han Fei actually had a lot of things to talk about with this person. After all, he was a human who had existed for who knew how many years. In his memories, he should still be from the end of days. However, this was obviously not the time to ask questions. Su Hongye and Yi Xiangxiang should be here soon. Meng Yi wouldn't waste so much time with the half-mermaid. At this moment, he must have figured out a way to come in. As for Chen Chen, who had been separated from him, he might show up accidentally. Han Fei said, before the third person appears, you still have a chance to hand over the soul-splitting technique. If the third person arrives and I don't see the soul-splitting technique, you don't have to hand it over. Why did Han Fei want the soul-splitting technique? Mainly because this technique was really terrifying. He didn't know what method he used to seal his soul for so long. After so many years, he still had a chance to possess him. With this thing, he could at least save his life. More importantly, this soul-splitting technique seemed to be very advanced. Didn't this guy summon so many ice and snow creatures with just a thought? This guy could summon so many ice and snow creatures with just a thought. It would definitely be much more convenient to use in a group fight. The third eye between the man's eyebrows flickered. He stretched out his hand, and the ice and snow condensed into a small ice cube in his hand. As spiritual energy flashed in his hand, a moment later, the small ice cube was thrown to Han Fei. You and I have no grudge. The snow god's temple has long been silent and desolate. There is no treasure better than the soul-splitting technique here. As he spoke, the man was slowly retreating. Han Fei immediately shouted, "Stop, don't move." The man looked awful. I've already given you this technique. What else do you want? Han Fei sneered. Let me check it first. I'm not afraid to tell you that I've already been fooled once. This time, if you dare to lie to me, I don't need to tell you the consequences, do I? Han Fei grabbed the ice cube and was about to check it. Tang Gu hurriedly said, wait a minute. Will it be dangerous? Han Fei shook his head. It's okay. My soul power is not weak. Since I was safe and sound last time, I can be safe this time too. Keep an eye on this man. Tang Gu pointed his halberd at the fake Su Mo, and Han Fei scanned it with his soul, only to find nothing wrong with it. However, when Han Fei finished reading the entire jade slip, a string of information emerged. Soul-splitting technique. This technique can tear apart one's soul and transfer it to another body. It can also be used to control living beings without consciousness. When the body was destroyed, it could forcefully seize a large number of souls and absorb the power of the souls to maintain the existence of the soul so that it could be used for possession. Drawback: this is incomplete. Once cultivated, the lightest consequence is stupidity, the most severe consequence is the destruction of the soul. Deduction: soul-splitting technique, complete version, deduction cost, 500,000. Han Fei's expression didn't change. He just said indifferently, no problem. By the way, brother, I'm not a person who doesn't keep his word. You can leave, but before that, can you tell me what the Age of Chaos is like? That person secretly heaved a sigh of relief. In the Age of Chaos, great stars fell, above the 9 heavens, immortal palaces withered. The other races in the sea took advantage of the situation to rise up, and fought against us for a long time. Originally, the war between human beings and the Sea Clan had been going on and never stopped. However, in the Age of Chaos, it is said that above the 9 heavens, alien races descended from the sky, and a large number of strong people in the immortal palace were killed. They all closed their mountains to avoid the war, resulting in the Age of Chaos in the human world. Such a bad situation lasted for as long as 3,000 years. Until. As soon as this person said this, with a bang, someone jumped out of the water. Han Fei directly launched the draw technique and shouted at the same time, kill him. This person was distracted by the person who just popped up and was about to escape, but he didn't expect that Han Fei, who was still amiable a moment ago, would suddenly attack him with all his strength. If he was in his heyday, he wouldn't be afraid to fight with his own body. But now, after all, he was just possessing a body, and no matter how strong he was, he couldn't exceed the strength of a hanging fisher. Besides, his strength was his soul. Immediately, this person tried to condense an array again. However, a circle of seawater suddenly rolled up and wrapped him up. The infinity water was activated, rubbing against the defense array that this person condensed, making a cracking sound. Tang Gu activated the most powerful halberd technique of the Heavenly Sword sect. The big halberd, with scarlet and brilliant killing intent, was slashed down, and dragon roars echoed. Puchi. On the other side, Yi Xiangxiang was flashing close. Before she arrived, the fake Su Mo in front of her had already been struck to death. It was all because of his bad luck. As soon as he came out, he ran into Han Fei and Tang Gu. It wasn't easy for him to possess a decent cultivator, but his strength hadn't grown up yet. He really had a lot of abilities, but he couldn't use them. Unexpectedly, in the end, he still couldn't escape the fate of being killed. However, when Yi Xiangxiang rushed at him, Han Fei immediately roared, "Protect your soul and don't come over." Yi Xiangxiang was stunned, and even Chu Hongye, who had just emerged from the water, hurried to protect her soul. Sure enough, Su Mo was hacked, but a weird force in the void leaped at Tang Gu. Pooh! Tang Gu vomited blood. At the same time, a terrifying pressure burst out of Tang Gu and pressed Han Fei, who was closest to him, to the ground, making it impossible for him to move. Yi Xiangxiang, who was still in midair, wasn't much better. She fell to the ground, with blood flowing out of her mouth. Chu Hongye was the furthest away, but she was forced to sit on the ground, her face pale, by the powerful pressure. At that time, Han Fei was dumbfounded. Bursting out with spiritual energy, he struggled to stand up and help Tang Gu. Although he didn't know how to help, he had to do something. However, the pressure disappeared as quickly as it came. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared without a trace. Tang Gu, on the other hand, breathed heavily with his halberd. With an awful face, Han Fei jumped to his feet and pointed his saber at Tang Gu. "Son of a bitch, get out here. Believe it or not, I'll tear down your snow god's temple and torture the master of the snow god's temple." Tang Gu tilted his head, looked at Han Fei, and grinned. "I'm fine." Han Fei was furious. "Stop pretending. You don't believe me, do you?" I'll chop this tree first. Do you believe me?" Yi Xiangxiang and Su Hongye were both stunned. What was going on? They were dealing with Su Mo together just now. Why was Han Fei so excited now? He seemed to be fighting Tang Gu. Tang Gu was amused. "I'm really fine. I don't know why, but a strange power suddenly appeared in my mind and tore his soul to shreds." Of course, Han Fei couldn't believe it. He simply roared, "Then answer my question. Where do we live? What do we store in our family's vat?" Tang Gu grinned even wider and replied telepathically, "The Blue Sea Town, the Heavenly Water Village, on the cliff nearest to the East Market. There's a small, shabby hut in front of the door, with 12 clams in it." Han Fei was instantly relieved. Then, he asked in shock, "Wait. What happened just now? What happened?" Tang Gu shook his head. "I don't know. This is the first time I've seen anything like this." Tang Gu, on the other hand, looked rather awful. The man just now was truly terrifying. He tried to swallow my soul by force. Then, I don't know why, but a strange power suddenly appeared, and it seemed to easily tear that person's soul apart. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What happened? Was there a demon purification pot in Tang Ji's head too? Or was it a treasure similar to the demon purification pot? It must be noted that he had just learned that the demon purification pot could prevent others from possessing him and could be used as a treasure to protect his soul. But what about Tang Gu? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Is there anything weird in your head? For example, a divine weapon, a treasure, a calabash, an old grandpa?" Dumbfounded, Tang Gu subconsciously shook his head. "Why? Why are calabashes and old grandpas in my head?" Han Fei took a long breath. It's fine. I thought that there was an incredible grandpa living in your head. At every critical moment, he would stand up and tear the enemy apart." Tang Gu, at this moment, Yi Xiangxiang and Su Hongye had arrived quickly with shock on their faces. Yi Xiangxiang asked in panic, "What was that? Was that Su Mo's last resort?" Su Hongye was alarmed. "It was so powerful. I couldn't resist at all. I felt that I would be torn apart at any moment." Tang Gu pondered. It must be Su Mo's last counterattack. Thankfully, he died quickly, or the consequences would have been dire. Han Fei quickly echoed, "Yes. Su Mo was extremely strong. Look, this guy is not a human being at all." At this moment, half of Su Mo's body had been cut open, and his eyes were still full of shock and astonishment. However, after he died, strange scales appeared on his body. Yi Xiangxiang exclaimed, That's impossible. A half-mermaid? That's impossible. If you were a half-mermaid, how could he have hidden among human beings for so long? Su Hongye asked in shock. Even an 8-star expert didn't notice him. How is it possible? Han Fei nodded deeply. It means that he must be an unparalleled heavenly talent among sea demons who can already transform into a complete human form. Su Hongye said gloomily, this is too serious. We have to bring the body back. If sea demons are capable of such unbelievable methods, human beings have to be wary of them. Third update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 694. Han Fei simply sat on the ground and took out his pot. Seeing that, Tang Gu and Yi Xiangxiang sat down on the snow too. Yi Xiangxiang said, there's no rush. I'm really exhausted. I haven't recovered yet. Tang Gu grinned. The sea demons that came in were basically annihilated. There should be a chance for us to catch our breath. We haven't found any treasures yet. It won't be easy to find them. Of the 4 of them, Su Hongye was the only one who was puzzled. What are you doing? In the next moment, Han Fei took out a tuna, poured the fish oil into the pot, and tossed all kinds of seasonings into the pot. Su Hongye knew what Han Fei was doing. She said, we're in the middle of a treasure trove, and you're still in the mood to eat? Tang Gu said casually, there's no rush. We've consumed a lot of energy in the battle and need to replenish ourselves. Yi Xiangxiang nodded quickly. It's not easy to find treasures. Let's wait. What if Meng Yi and the others arrive soon? Chances are that there will be a great battle. Han Fei smiled casually. It's time to show my real skills. Tuna was extremely rare here. Although it was not an exotic creature, it was not something that could be caught casually on the coast. Han Fei bought this one from the market. Han Fei waved his knife, but he didn't prepare it for the pot. In the pot, he put crab meat and shrimp meat, which were already delicious enough. Then, Han Fei took out the tender shrimp and crab meat, brushed the pot, added oil, and put dough into the pot. When the pancakes were formed, Han Fei quickly covered the ingredients that had been taken out of the pot and added strawberry jam. Then, Han Fei waved his hand and said proudly, have a taste of the invincible seafood tuna roll. Tang Gu and Yi Xiangxiang accepted it without hesitation and began to chew. Yi Xiangxiang slapped the ground with her feet. Wow! Why is it so delicious? Why is it so delicious? Tang Gu didn't say anything. He already knew that Han Fei's food was delicious. All he needed to do was eat it. Su Hongye took a bite suspiciously. Then, she gasped hard, feeling that she couldn't think straight. This? What kind of food is this? Han Fei snorted. I don't care what the food is. Alright, hurry up and finish eating. Once you're done, we're leaving. Suddenly, Yi Xiangxiang was stunned. Wait, why do I feel like there's something wrong with me? While speaking, Yi Xiangxiang suddenly leaped out and said in surprise, why did my speed increase by 20%? Why? Han Fei smiled and said, no reason. It's just that the ingredients I use are more advanced. In fact, Han Fei had a message in his heart, this is a dish made from a variety of essential ingredients. It has a smooth texture and a fresh fragrance, maintaining the original characteristics of the food. Han Fei had long known that cooking had buffs. This was especially obvious in the level 3 fishery. However, after eating it, the effect was not so complete. Han Fei didn't know how Yi Xiangxiang discovered that he was moving faster. Logically speaking, she shouldn't have been able to notice such a subtle difference if she wasn't fighting. The few of them ate very quickly. Most importantly, Han Fei needed this buff. At the same time, he needed to recover some energy and spiritual energy. He couldn't keep eating spiritual fruits and drinking candle dragon blood. He hadn't even left the Scattered Stars Island yet, and a random secret realm had almost killed him. Besides, they weren't in a good state and needed a full recovery. Yi Xiangxiang climbed to the top of the tree and jumped down. There's nothing up there except some broken ice. What happened just now? Han Fei opened his eyes and bragged, I thought there was something up there, so I just fought with Su Mo. We didn't find anything wrong with it. Tang Gu pretended that he didn't know. I just don't understand why there is such a big tree here. What is it used for? Su Hongye sighed. It's a pity that perception is useless in this secret realm. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been so passive. Han Fei shook his head. No. On our way here, we found a lot of half-mermaid hero souls at the bottom of the sea. It's not a coincidence that the hero souls appeared. There must be a secret here that we haven't discovered yet. Immediately, the four of them looked at the tree at the same time. Yi Xiangxiang asked, You mean, in this tree? Han Fei nodded. First of all, we have to figure out why so many half-mermaid hero souls have appeared. What are they trying to protect? Since they surround this island, and this island is so big, there must be something on the island. But if there's nothing on the tree, it can only be in the tree or underground. Tang Gu nodded. Yes, let's see if this tree can be split open. Tang Gu immediately went to chop the tree. Han Fei had experience in cutting trees. It was he who cut down the 10,000-year-old big red trunk. At this moment, he snapped his fingers, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp appeared. Han Fei kicked it. Dig all the way to the bottom of the tree. Yi Xiangxiang exclaimed, Huh. Your mantis shrimp is a bit different. Han Fei nodded. Yes, it's handsome. I know that. Yi Xiangxiang was speechless. I mean, it looks quite awesome. Su Hongye asked, I wonder what's going on outside. Have Zhao Jie and the others come in? Han Fei smiled casually. Don't worry. That guy is very cunning. He should be fine. Also, we have the advantage in numbers. Clang, 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 Tang Ji's blow destroyed the trunk more than a meter deep, only to find that the tree was full of stones. Han Fei immediately said, They're spiritual stones. Huh? They're all empty of spiritual energy. Yi Xiangxiang was surprised. Why are there so many spiritual stones in the tree? What a shame. Why is the spiritual energy all gone? Han Fei asked, What you should be asking is why so many spiritual stones have been sucked dry. By logic, they should be left here for a long time if nobody is sucking them, right? Tang Gu said, Let me split it open again. Han Fei shook his head. No, it must be underground. Su Hongye asked in confusion, Why are you so sure? Han Fei chuckled. Take a guess. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't tell her that he had once dug the 10,000-year-old big red trunk. Sure enough, after about half an hour, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp crawled out of the ground and rolled on the ground. Huh? The nine-tailed mantis shrimp's information was imprinted in Han Fei's mind that there was a flower below. However, it couldn't help but eat the flower. Han Fei flew into a rage and went up to kick it. You stupid shrimp, who let you eat it? Yi Xiangxiang asked curiously, What's wrong? Everyone. Han Fei twisted his head. Nothing. There seems to be a flower below, but it has been eaten by my contractual spiritual beast. Huh? Yi Xiangxiang said in surprise, Your contractual spiritual beast can eat things without permission? Han Fei said leisurely, Isn't it normal? Contractual spiritual beasts are also creatures. Of course they will eat things they can't help. Although Han Fei said so, he was quite curious in his heart. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp was not like this. Anything that it couldn't help but swallow must be extraordinary. Han Fei said, Let's go down. There seems to be something down there. The four of them slid down as if they were on a slide. Yi Xiangxiang couldn't help but be amazed. It's so nice to have a contractual spiritual beast that can dig holes. Han Fei was lost for words. Go catch one yourself. Yi Xiangxiang said, It's not worthwhile. We hunters are not suitable for such contractual spiritual beasts. Su Hongye felt like an outsider and couldn't help but ask, are you very familiar with each other? Yi Xiangxiang shrugged. Not very familiar with each other. At this time, Tang Gu interrupted them and said, there is an array here. Han Fei glanced at it. Huh? Isn't this a spirit gathering array? When he looked at it, he stomped his foot and a spirit gathering array appeared. However, it was very different from the one in front of him. Immediately, Han Fei shook his head. No, it's not just a spirit gathering array. It seems to be several arrays that are connected together. When Han Fei stomped on it, he was sucked in with a swish. When Han Fei opened his eyes again, he found that he was in a state of weightlessness. When he looked around, he found that he was suspended in midair. This was a huge underground space. Steels were floating in the sky, and rows of warrior statues were placed on the ground under his feet. At the front, there seemed to be an altar. On top of the altar, there was a 30-meter-tall female phantom. She was wearing a fluttering gauze dress and held an ice scepter in her hand. She was floating in the air. Shwa! 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 In the next second, Tang Gu, Yi Xiangxiang, and Su Hongye appeared one after another. Su Hongye was surprised. Where are we? Tang Gu was surprised. So many soldiers. Are they real people or statues? Yi Xiangxiang exclaimed, is this how it feels to fly? I'm flying. Should we go there with fishing techniques? The four of them staggered in midair. Han Fei was crouching in midair and looking down at the army down below. He glanced at the floating female illusion now and then. Is that person the master of the snow god's temple? The day after tomorrow is New Year's Eve, and the new year is coming. I work all the time during the new year. End of this chapter. Chapter 695. Han Fei and the others floated in midair, turning their bodies and observing the underground palace. Tang Gu suddenly pointed behind them and asked, is that an array over there? Han Fei turned around, only to discover that there was an enormous ice surface before the army of statues. On the ice surface, spiritual energy was flowing in a certain route now and then. The spiritual energy had a wide range and almost covered the entire altar at the center. Han Fei's heart immediately became heavy. Yes, it's an array, and a big one at that. Su Hongye asked, what's an array for? Han Fei pointed at the front of the ice surface. If his guess was correct, it should be a battlefield outside of the array. As he talked, Han Fei took out the blue sea wandering dragon bow and shot an arrow at that place. The arrow of spiritual energy exploded, and shadows immediately floated out of the ground one after another. Yi Xiangxiang exclaimed, the heroic souls of the half-mermaids. Why did they all die here? Han Fei chuckled. Because of the altar occupied by the woman at the center, of course. If my guess is correct, there must be something special on the altar. Both human beings and the half-mermaids want it. They're at an impasse here. Tang Gu raised a question. But why are there statues of human beings on the ground? If this is a battlefield, there should be real people here. Han Fei was slightly confused too. Are those statues actually real people? Su Hongye said, that's impossible. When I came in, I checked the statues, and they were indeed made of stone. Their bodies are made of stone too. Han Fei asked, what if it was a spell that turned them into stones? Su Hongye was briefly stunned. How can there be such a terrifying spell? Han Fei couldn't help but think of the ghost-eyed giant crocodile that was still guarding the Thug Academy. That guy could petrify anything with just a sweep of his eyes. Yi Xiangxiang said, hey, why are you thinking so much? Let's go to the altar at the center first. Now that there are only 4 of us, we can take whatever we want. Su Hongye said, no. If it is as we have speculated, and the central altar is so important, do you think we can easily ascend it? Han Fei actually wanted to go there too. However, being careful, he took out his fishing rod and hooked it at the statue below. We can get closer first. All four of them felt that it was feasible. Regardless of whether he could go up or not, it was always right to get closer and take a look. However, before they went down, something flashed past them. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. A familiar figure crashed through a stone door from the other side and flew in. Zhao Jie. Zhao Jie seemed to have been attacked by someone else. When he entered, he suddenly realized that he was flying. He was dumbfounded. When he saw Han Fei and the others, he immediately shouted, "Over here, help!" The four of them realized that Meng Yi and the others had broken in. The four of them hurriedly cast their fishing hooks at Zhao Jie. At the same time, a group of people barged in through the hole. Meng Yi, Chen Aochen, and Ning Dong were among them. However, there were only 6 humans. Where were the others? Han Fei's heart immediately sank. Is he dead? Apart from them, the 3 murlocs wearing golden battle suits and holding golden harpoons were also there. They were followed by 2 half-mermaids and heavenly talents. There were 5 of them in total. Yi Xiangxiang looked awful. Something seems to have happened. Right after Yi Xiangxiang said that, another 3 people rushed in from the entrance. Han Fei knew one of them. Wasn't it Chen Chen who was separated from him? Apart from Chen Chen, there was also a hunter and a half-mermaid. However, the 3 of them behaved rather strangely. They didn't float like Meng Yi and the others when they came in. Instead, Chen Chen simply stepped on the ice, and the spiritual energy on the ice flickered faster. Don't touch the array. Han Fei immediately roared. Meng Yi, on the other hand, roared at Han Fei, the 3 of them have been possessed. They're no longer human beings. Han Fei's blood froze and he looked at Tang Gu. Had the 3 of them been possessed? In the next moment, Han Fei's guess was confirmed. After the 3 of them ran on the array for a while, the array began to change. Suddenly, Chen Chen roared, "Whoever disturbs the palace master will die." Following Chen Chen's roar, thousands of ice blades floated in the air. They swept at Meng Yi and the others like dragons. However, those who could survive in such a situation were all cunning people. The moment Meng Yi and the others flew up, they cast their fish hooks into the ocean of statues. They quickly flew to Han Fei's side. However, when Han Fei saw that the fish hooks were tied to the statues, spiritual energy suddenly quaked under the feet of the statues. Han Fei roared again, "Let go. Don't come any closer." However, it was too late. Before Meng Yi and the others realized what was going on, endless white mist rose from the entire underground palace, and there was a glow in the mist. Then, Han Fei couldn't see anything. Everybody around him had disappeared without a trace. Tang Gu, Yi Xiangxiang, Su Hongye. Damn it. Meng Yi is such a stupid teammate. This time, things are getting out of hand. Is this an illusion or something? Han Fei found himself in a world of ice and snow, and he fell from the sky to the ground. Creak. He stepped on the snow and heard the sound. He lifted his foot, and a realistic footprint appeared. Is anyone there? Han Fei looked around and shouted, but his perception still didn't work. In this boundless white smoke, it was impossible to see anything with the naked eye. I'm here. Hearing Tang Ji's voice, Han Fei roared, "Don't move. Keep talking, I'm coming." Tang Gu said, "I don't think we are in the underground palace anymore." Han Fei smiled bitterly. "I know. Look, when I step on it, it makes a creaking sound." After running for about 500 meters, he saw Tang Gu who was looking around with his halberd. The 2 of them could only see each other when they were 3 meters apart. Seeing Han Fei, Tang Gu smiled and said, "Hurry up and find someone else." Han Fei paused for a moment and suddenly slashed the blood-drinking knife at Tang Gu. Tang Gu blocked with his halberd and asked in surprise, "What's wrong with you?" "It's me." Tang Gu was stunned. "Have you been bewitched?" Han Fei immediately sneered. Although Tang Gu smirks when he sees me, he doesn't smile like this. Han Fei knew something was wrong the moment he saw Tang Gu. Although the person in front of him looked exactly the same as Tang Gu wouldn't laugh at this moment. Besides, Tang Ji's big grin was a gratified smile. What's there to be gratified about? Tang Gu was still explaining, I am Tang Gu. Han Fei attached to the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Fine. Then let me ask you, what is your spiritual beast? Tang Gu immediately replied, the dragon feather lobster. Han Fei was stunned. Did I guess wrong? But Han Fei still felt that something was wrong, so he said again, summon the dragon feather lobster. Let me have a look. Tang Gu quickly put down his halberd. Don't be rash. Let me show you. With a flash between Tang Ji's eyebrows, the dragon feather lobster suddenly appeared. However, before Tang Gu realized what was going on, the moment the dragon feather lobster appeared, a knife light slashed at him. The terrifying invincible fighting intent directly split Tang Gu in half and turned him into a mass of snow. Han Fei sneered. I knew it was fake. If it were a real person, he would be able to read the data of the dragon feather lobster at first glance. However, although the dragon feather lobster was simulated, there was no data. It was definitely fake. The fake Tang Gu was cut, which made Han Fei vigilant again. In this case, he shouldn't trust anyone anymore. The reason why he could see through Tang Gu at a glance was that he was very familiar with Tang Gu. But if it were someone else, unless they summoned their spiritual beast, there would be no other way to identify it. Han Fei walked less than 300 meters in the snow. Suddenly, he felt a tingling behind him. Immediately, he leaned to one side, put on an ultra-quality battle suit, and slashed backward. This time, a person that Han Fei was not familiar with appeared. If Han Fei remembered correctly, he should be a hunter from Sumo's team. This person looked at Han Fei, and Han Fei also frowned and looked at him. Seeing Han Fei, this person heaved a long sigh of relief. Sorry, I came here because I heard the sound of fighting just now. I didn't expect it to be one of us. Han Fei quickly waved his hand. Hey! Let's not talk about whether you are one of us or not. Summon your spiritual beast first. Let me take a look at it. Only after I see it can you be one of us. That person. The person was lost for words. What do you mean? Han Fei sneered. Literally. Let's see your spiritual beast first. The person hesitated for a while, and with a flash of spiritual energy, a red fox fish appeared. Then, Han Fei went up and slashed. With a flash of knife light, this person was directly cut into two. Han Fei cursed, you lied to me again. Do you think I'm so gullible? There's someone in the mist, right? Is it the master of the snow god's temple? Do you really think you can fool me with such a lousy trick? To tell you the truth, my eyes are like torches, and I can see the essence through the phenomenon. So, don't waste your time. If you have the guts, come out and fight me one-on-one. Whoever loses will kneel on the ground and call me daddy. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 696. He didn't know who was making dummies to deceive him. However, after failing twice in a row, that person was probably stunned too. Why did you know that my spiritual beast was fake when you saw it? Is it because I imitated the spiritual beast? Is it not real? That doesn't make sense. They were clearly exactly the same, okay? With a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Han Fei touched Little White's head. Daughter, can you find anything different about this place? Look for them. Bring your daddy and I will kill them all. In the misty land of ice and snow, one's sense of direction should be extremely poor. However, without hesitation, Little White swam straight in one direction with Han Fei. Then, after changing directions more than 30 times in a row, Little White suddenly changed directions. At this moment, Han Fei immediately understood. An array. Han Fei was sure that he had run into a certain array. Otherwise, with Little White's super navigation ability, he didn't need to change directions at all in this boundless snow. In the face of Little White, this array would probably give up on itself. I've changed directions so many times. Why haven't you lost your way? Thud. When Han Fei stepped on a piece of ice, he grinned. Sure enough, there was another world here. If he guessed right, the others should still be lost in the array at this moment. According to the nature of the maze, it was almost impossible to get out of it easily without extraordinary talent. Han Fei ran wildly along the ice and didn't stop until he came to an ice palace. This palace was not very large, no more than 100 meters high, and the gate was also made of ice, as clear as glass. Creak. When Han Fei reached the gate opened automatically. Han Fei put away Little Black and Little White, activated the 6 spirit armor, and walked in with the blood-drinking knife and the water-dividing seal. Creak. Behind him, the gate closed. Han Fei looked all the way forward and found that there was a flight of steps in front of him. On the steps, there seemed to be an ice throne. Han Fei sneered. He found that as long as he didn't believe anything in this place, there was no reason to be deceived. When Han Fei walked up, he found a sword stabbed into the ground in front of the throne, a long sword that looked extremely domineering. The hilt of the sword was made of ice blue lines and black strange stones. As for the body of the sword, Han Fei felt that it was made of ice and strange stones. Moreover, it was constantly emitting a faint blue light. Han Fei stared at the sword thoughtfully for a while. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't tempted. However, the people living in the Snow God Palace were all liars. Sticking a sword here, wasn't it obvious that it was for someone else to pull out? Ha! I won't pull it out. I would really like to see what kind of thing is trying to pull a prank on me, to think that it would go so far as to use a sword to scare me off. Han Fei took 2 steps forward, sat directly on the ice throne, and crossed his legs. Han Fei took out a spiritual fruit, took a bite, and then an ultra-quality spiritual weapon appeared in his hand. It was the long saber that sealed the hopping fish. With a thought from Han Fei, the long saber automatically flew out and slashed at the domineering long sword. Frostmourne, Kacha. Pooh! A strange power broke out, and the ultra-quality long saber that had a sealed spirit was broken. As for Han Fei, almost at the same time, blood flowed from his mouth and nose as he suffered a backlash. Han Fei was so scared that he stood up from the ice throne with a whoosh. What the hell? Han Fei swallowed, hurriedly cast the divine healing technique on himself, and then stared at the long sword carefully. Han Fei's heart was pounding. He quickly looked around, only to find that there was nothing but ice around him. His eyes immediately burned with eagerness. This was definitely a fucking divine weapon. An ultra-quality spiritual weapon was broken by one blow. How could this thing be ordinary? Han Fei threw the half-spiritual fruit in his hand into his mouth. He stretched out his hand and the embroidery needle appeared. Ha! Let's see how strong you are. Ren Tianfei had confirmed that the embroidery needle was a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Han Fei didn't believe that this sword could be stronger than his sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Clang! Han Fei raised his hands and knocked with all his strength. When the embroidery needle collided with the giant ice sword, Han Fei clearly felt the movement from the embroidery needle, and he almost couldn't hold it. Immediately afterward, a dark blue power burst out in an instant, shaking Han Fei back and making him sit on the ice throne. At this moment, it was not his mouth and nose that were bleeding, but his eyes, nose, and mouth. Fuck. What the hell is this? Is this also a sea-quelling bizarre treasure? Han Fei cast the divine healing technique on himself again and was about to take a closer look, when a dark blue light burst out from the ice sword. Immediately afterward, a weird light floated out of his eyes. He took a closer look, only to see that it was a woman with long white hair and a cold face wearing a blue gauze dress. Han Fei immediately shrank his feet on the ice throne. Fuck. Who are you? Did you come out of the sword? Are you a sword spirit? The woman frowned slightly and looked at Han Fei coldly. Come down. Han Fei felt that the surrounding temperature was surprisingly cold, and his teeth couldn't help chattering. What do you mean come down? The woman glanced at Han Fei's feet. Get down from my seat. Han Fei looked down, only to find that his 2 feet were squatting on the chair. He was speechless. When did I become such a coward? Immediately, Han Fei put on a serious face and didn't get down. Instead, he sat on the chair and crossed his legs. Your chair. Why do you say that this is your chair? Are you the master of the snow god's temple? Seeing that Han Fei seemed to be quite shameless, the woman didn't insist. Instead, she looked at the rod in Han Fei's hand. A sea-quelling bizarre treasure. How can you use a sea-quelling bizarre treasure with your little strength? No, this sea-quelling bizarre treasure didn't recognize you as its master. You just used it by force. Han Fei chuckled. It's none of your business. I can use it anyway. I'm happy and I like it. But your snow god's temple is too evil. You tempted others with the soul-splitting technique in an attempt to possess them and be reborn. What a great plan. Just now, pretending to be someone else in the snow was your trick, wasn't it? The woman looked at Han Fei quietly. I never thought that it would be you who came here. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. So, you actually knew that someone would come in? The woman shook her head. I didn't know until the moment you stepped into the underground palace. But I checked everyone's spiritual heritage and found that you should be the weakest one. Han Fei sneered. It means that you were wrong. How should I explain it? What do you mean now? I found your base camp, and you seem to have become a weapon spirit. TSK. Tell me where the treasure is. Tell me, what are the half-mermaids guarding? The woman glanced at Han Fei coldly. You don't deserve to know. If the snow god's temple hadn't run out of spiritual energy, how could it have been exposed? How could an intermediate hanging fisher like you be so arrogant here? Han Fei chuckled. You don't want to tell me, do you? Are you sure you won't tell me? You are a sword spirit now. What can you do to me? Believe it or not, I will pee all over you. As soon as Han Fei said this, the air in the entire ice palace suddenly stagnated. He seemed to feel the extreme coldness, and the strong coldness seemed to have pierced into his bones. Han Fei shivered and immediately jumped off the ice throne, staying far away from the woman. Why are you so arrogant? God knows how many years have passed since your age of doom. Do you still think you are a queen? Let me tell you, I've been very lenient to you. Otherwise, believe it or not, I will throw you into the insect nest. Fuck. Swish. The big ice sword suddenly flew up and slashed at Han Fei. Just now, Han Fei had felt the power of this big ice sword. His physique was no match for an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. If he was hit by it, he would probably be split into 2 pieces. Majestic mystic spell. Attach. Immediately, Han Fei couldn't care less. He activated a secret method and attached Little Fatty and Little Gold. The reason why he didn't let the 9-tailed mantis shrimp attach to him was that he was 100% sure that the 9-star chains absolutely couldn't resist the power of this big ice sword. If one of the 9-star chains was cut off, he didn't know what to do. Is it a contractual spiritual beast? At this moment, Han Fei's speed, strength, and defense were almost exerted to the extreme. He didn't dare to use 10,000 knives in one. After all, ultra-quality spiritual weapons were not easy to get. They were all refined one by one, and each of them was very valuable. If they were broken by this big ice sword, it would be a big loss. Clang, clang, clang. Fortunately, Ren Tianfen had specially trained Han Fei for 2 months, so that he could exert his movement technique to the extreme. Therefore, at this moment, Han Fei could narrowly avoid the big ice sword every time and fight back from time to time. The woman was a little surprised. You are quite talented. You are comparable to a heavenly talent. Has human beings risen again after the age of doom? Second. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 697. Han Fei was chased by the big ice sword. Although they seemed to be evenly matched, Han Fei felt that his blood was turbulent and his internal organs were tumbling every time he was attacked. Han Fei immediately shouted, Okay, let's stop fighting. I, Han Fei, am a righteous and outspoken man. To be honest, the snow god's temple has just been exposed, so hanging fishers like us have come in. Have you thought about the consequences if other people come in the future? Sure enough, hearing Han Fei's words, the big ice sword stopped and flew back to the ice throne. The woman looked at Han Fei and said lightly, What's the level of the strongest people in the outside world? Han Fei finally heaved a sigh of relief. Panting heavily, he said, The strongest? How would I know? I'm just a hanging fisher. But are explorers considered strong? The woman nodded. Of course. Your current cultivation system was originally passed down from the end of days. Explorers are naturally strong. They left the infinite ocean and attacked the Sea Clan. They are certainly not weak. Han Fei patted his chest. Oh. There are explorers, but I don't know much about them. There seems to be a venerable behind them. That's just a rumor. I'm still weak, so I don't know what level they are. The woman nodded faintly and asked, Have humans returned? The vast land has been submerged. Where do humans live? Are they still on the ship? Han Fei shook his head. Of course not. Now humans all live in the sky. Nonsense. Only the divine palace can live in the sky. How can mortals set foot in it? Besides, the stars have fallen and the divine palace is desolate. How can anyone go in? Han Fei frowned. This was not the first time he had heard of the divine palace. The first time he heard of it was in the undersea city. At that time, the last words Li Huang said before his death seemed to be, When the undersea city is rebuilt, I will return to the divine palace. Han Fei sneered. What do you know? I've never heard of the immortal palace you're talking about. Humans now live on Levitating Island and fly in the sky with the help of levitating stones and formations. Floating stones? The woman was taken aback. After a long time, she slowly said, So, the levitating stone can be used like this? Han Fei warmed up, took out an energy fruit, and took a bite. Han Fei said, Let me tell you, human beings are crazily searching for treasures. There is basically no land in the sea. It could be said that within a radius of 1,000,000 kilometers, or even further, there was only a small island that was less than 2,000 kilometers wide. The Sea Clan and human beings fight each other for treasures and spirit awakening fluid every day. I can say without hesitation that you are lucky to have met me. If you were to be obtained by those powerhouses outside, they would definitely ask you questions and then refine you. The woman tilted her head and looked at Han Fei. Then what's the difference between you and those experts? Han Fei smiled. Of course I'm different. I can choose not to refine you. Moreover, I'm not bragging to you. I will eventually become stronger and stronger. If you follow me, I will definitely not disgrace you in the future. So, acknowledge me as your master. Whoosh! Seeing that the big ice sword was about to rise again, Han Fei hurriedly waved his hand. I'm just kidding. Don't be so serious, Han Fei couldn't help sweating. This big ice sword is a bit fierce. He fully activated the majestic mystic spell, fused with little gold and little fatty, and held the sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Besides, the woman seemed to be quite relaxed. If they fought for a long time, he would definitely be crippled. Han Fei suddenly said solemnly, There are only so many people coming this time. Can you choose the half-mermaid sea demon? Excluding the sea demon, among the remaining human beings, only the one with the big halberd can fight me. The rest are just losers. The woman said, Your spiritual heritage is the weakest. Han Fei sneered. I'm weak. Why would I tell you that my spiritual heritage is growing? How can my physique be so strong if I'm weak? As he spoke, Han Fei hit himself in the chest with the embroidery needle. Although his scalp was numb with pain, he still pretended to be relaxed. Clatter. More than 200 ultra-quality spiritual weapons were suspended in the air, forming the 10,000 knives in one. Han Fei continued, I'm also a refiner. It's easy for me to refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons, and I can also refine divine weapons in the future. Then, Han Fei stepped on the ground, and the spirit gathering array, the coiled turtle array, and the 7 spirits killing array emerged one after another. Han Fei said, I'm also an array master. The gate of your snow god's temple is painted with an array diagram, right? It should be the fusion of countless arrays. It's not that I'm bragging, but the moment I saw that door, with my extraordinary mind, I already guessed what it was. The woman was still looking at him with her head tilted. Han Fei was speechless. Isn't it fucking enough? Immediately, a golden light shone on Han Fei's fist, and a golden fist shadow blasted out. Han Fei said, Look, this is the art of invincibility. Let me ask you, how many people in the Age of Doom know the art of invincibility? Sure enough, the woman slightly glanced at Han Fei, and the way she looked at him changed slightly. Seeing this scene, Han Fei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, Sister, even if you don't approve of me, you can't brag anymore. The woman nodded slightly. In general, you are not bad. It's just that your knowledge is quite diverse. Besides, they don't seem to be perfect, but you can barely be regarded as a heavenly talent. Han Fei grinned. Of course. You make it sound as if I would lie to you. So what? You will follow me in the future. I can't tell others that I have a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Otherwise, neither you nor I will survive. It's a matter of course that we will be robbed. The woman nodded. When your strength grows to the level of a strong master, I will not recognize you as my master. Han Fei waved his hand indifferently. It doesn't matter. You make it sound as if I lack a weapon. Look at my stick. It never loses its temper with me. How obedient it is. As soon as Han Fei said this, the embroidery needle in his hand suddenly took the initiative to hit him, which made his scalp go numb. Han Fei was speechless. I've been with you for so many years, but you never moved. I finally got a chance to brag about you, but you hit me in the face? Are you a competent weapon? Sure enough, the woman spat disdainfully. She was also calculating in her heart. She didn't know whether this flowery young man could be trusted. Han Fei quickly put away the embroidery needle and grinned. Accident, this is just an accident. I'm competing for your favor, you know. The woman looked at Han Fei. If you want me to follow you temporarily, you need to promise me a few things. Han Fei patted his chest and said, Tell me, I can do it. I will definitely do it for you. The woman said, First of all, you need to give me 10 million points of spiritual energy every month to nourish the sword. Puff. Han Fei was dumbfounded. 10 million? Every month? The woman frowned. You don't want to? Han Fei immediately shook his head. No, I'm very willing. But 10 million points of spiritual energy, look at my current level. Do you think I can easily get 10 million points of spiritual energy every month? Han Fei thought to himself, I have spiritual energy, but why should I give it to you for free? The woman pondered for a moment. How much can you provide? Han Fei stretched out 2 fingers. 2 million points, is that enough? You know, this is already very high. It's the same for other people's breakthroughs. The woman sneered. 2 million. Is this how you call yourself a genius? Can 2 million points of spiritual energy support you to refine so many ultra-quality spiritual weapons? Han Fei felt that it made sense. He seemed to have exposed too much of his wealth before. He couldn't help but raise another finger. I can get 3 million points of spiritual energy if I grit my teeth. The woman said casually, 5 million points of spiritual energy. If you can get it, I will stay with you temporarily. If you can't, I have my own ways to leave the snow god's temple before the experts come. Okay. But I can't add more. Han Fei quickly waved his hand. Take it easy. I'm poor now. Look at my face. Poor. I can provide 5 million points of spiritual energy at most every month. The woman didn't intend to bargain with Han Fei and continued, secondly, after following you, I need to sleep for 3 years. The snow god's temple has been buried for too long, and I'm too weak. Even if you encounter any trouble, I'm afraid I can't help you in a short time. Even if I help you, it'll be meaningless. Han Fei was speechless. You're going to sleep for 3 years. Do I have to find a Buddha to worship at home? Han Fei asked weakly, as a sword spirit, you can sleep. But can't I use this sword? The woman said disdainfully, Snowmorn is also a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. If a sea-quelling bizarre treasure doesn't recognize you as its master, you can't exert its power at all. So, if you have one unowned sea-quelling bizarre treasure, the effect will be the same as if you have two. Han Fei gritted his teeth. Okay, 3 years it is. It's just a few 100 million points of spiritual energy. Here you go. Han Fei was ready to take a gamble. 3 years later. In 3 years, his strength would definitely soar. By then, he would definitely suppress this woman and make her kneel on the ground and call him daddy. Han Fei asked, that's all? The woman added, there's one more. Han Fei almost couldn't hold back his fist. I really want to punch you to death. Not only do you want spiritual energy, but you also have so many requirements. The woman said, the snow god's temple will not fall into anyone else's hands. You have to destroy this place. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Destroy it? No problem, no problem. But about the treasures, can you? The woman said, there are no treasures in the snow god's temple. If you get the array, there will only be the soul-splitting technique and Snowmorn left. As for the soul-splitting technique, I'll teach it to you as a favor. However, don't teach it to anyone else. You can't teach it to anyone who has bad intentions. Han Fei was lost for words. None of the people in the snow god's temple who have learned the soul-splitting technique have good intentions. The woman waved her hand, and a blue scripture floated in the air. Han Fei scanned it from beginning to end. The soul-splitting technique had been memorized by the demon purification pot, and the incomplete technique was finally gone. Soul-splitting technique, heaven level, divine quality, note, soul-splitting technique. This technique can tear apart the soul and transfer the soul to another body. It can also be used to control unconscious creatures. When the body is destroyed, it can forcibly deprive a lot of souls and absorb the power of the souls to maintain the soul so that it can be possessed. Disadvantage: splitting the soul may weaken the soul of the original body and damage its compatibility and spiritual power. Deduced art, soul-splitting path deduction consumption, 100 million third update. Please vote. Today is the third update. There will be more updates tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So, don't rush me today. Yes, yes. Thank you all for your monthly votes. I still want the monthly votes. Let us ride the waves and welcome the arrival of New Year's Eve. End of this chapter. Chapter 698. What level is this soul-splitting technique? Han Fei was surprised. It was the first time that he had received a heaven-level, divine quality technique. For a long time, everybody told him that divine quality didn't exist. But now, it did. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder. Was this a technique passed down from the Age of Doom? That was the Age of Doom. If it was in the Age of Doom, wouldn't it be amazing? The woman said casually, this is a heaven-level, divine quality technique, which is the foundation of the snow god's temple. However, in ancient times, it wasn't considered a powerful technique. You, on the other hand, can't abuse it even if you learn it. This is a technique to split the soul. You're still far from it with your current level. Han Fei didn't care about that. He simply asked, the others must still be sleepy, right? Why don't we talk about the Age of Doom and the ancient times? However, the woman simply said casually, there's no special difference. As you said, human beings live in the sky now, but their living positions have changed. In the Age of Doom, the experts disappeared, and the great techniques were lost. Human beings fought the sea creatures for survival. Okay, a sea demon is coming. Let's see how you can kill him. Han Fei was lost for words. So fast. Didn't you set up a snow maze? How can they come here without special methods? The woman said unhurriedly, I let him in to see how strong you are. Han Fei, with a swish, the woman crawled into Snowmorn and disappeared. Then, the ice gate was pushed open, and a half-mermaid in a golden battle suit rushed in. The moment he saw Han Fei, the half-mermaid was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that the first person to arrive here would be Han Fei. Although Han Fei killed a peerless heavenly talent on the ice road and exposed his identity as a soul warrior in the end, the half-mermaids still remembered Han Fei as a spirit gatherer and an array master. They thought that Han Fei, as a spirit gatherer and an array master, couldn't be stronger than an expert who was a soul warrior. They thought that no matter how strong a spirit gatherer was, he couldn't be stronger than an expert who was a soul warrior. Han Fei shrugged. Hello, what a coincidence. The half-merman looked at the ice throne, because Snowmorn was the most attractive item here. It was obvious that it wasn't an ordinary item. The half-mermaid roared, despicable human beings, go to hell. The half-mermaid roared, and a colorful spider appeared. With the fusion of the half-mermaid and the companion spirit, this guy had 8 sharp claws on his back, and these sharp claws pierced the void, forming big void thorns. Han Fei's body shook, and the blue sea wandering dragon daggers flew out. The 10,000 knives in one swept out like a dragon out of the sea. Han Fei pulled out a knife, and a terrifying knife light appeared in front of the half-mermaid in the blink of an eye, startling the latter. Clang! At this moment, he could feel the benefits of having a divine weapon. His sword-drawing technique was actually blocked. As for the opponent's weapon, it seemed to be intact. As soon as this person blocked Han Fei's blow, a strange light suddenly burst out of his eyes. In the next second, Han Fei's 10,000 knives in one all froze in the air as if they were still. No matter how hard Han Fei tried, he couldn't move them at all. Fuck, what kind of divine technique is this? Han Fei immediately moved, attached to the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, and tried to roll back the blue sea wandering dragon daggers with the 9-star chain. Sure enough, under the interference of external forces, the blue sea wandering dragon daggers were forcibly taken back. This person must have some kind of pupil technique that could freeze a part of space. If Han Fei was swept by him, wouldn't he be at his mercy? Immediately, Han Fei kept a distance from him. Seeing that the drawing technique didn't work, he took out the blue sea wandering dragon bow. Without any fancy moves, Han Fei was ready to shoot the 7th arrow. The spiritual energy around him was suddenly emptied and gathered into an arrow of spiritual energy. A total of 12,800 points of spiritual energy drained Han Fei's spiritual energy. But fortunately, Han Fei replenished it quickly, and his body was inexplicably filled with spiritual energy again. However, this attack was still too powerful for Han Fei to use. Therefore, blood overflowed from his right arm and his skin was torn. The half-mermaid also saw that Han Fei was not right. Holding the harpoon with both hands, he stood in front of him. With a swoosh, his whole body was ignited with white flames. On the golden harpoon, a white light appeared as if it had exerted the sharpness of the golden age chi to the extreme. Swish! Point! The spiritual energy arrow pierced through the air and the golden harpoon pointed at the air. The two attacks didn't collide head-on. On the contrary, the two of them were charging at each other's main body. The difference was that the half-mermaid had a divine golden battle suit, while Han Fei was only wearing an ultra-quality battle suit. Han Fei stepped on the ground, and the coiled turtle array appeared. He covered his body with a spiritual energy protective cover, and at the same time, the water-dividing seal in his hand turned into a giant seal phantom and struck at the half-mermaid. Boom! On the half-mermaid's side, the spiritual energy arrow had already exploded, and ice chips were flying within 100 meters. Kacha! The water-dividing seal in Han Fei's hand met this blow. It was already full of cracks, but it only lasted for half a minute. Taking advantage of this time, Han Fei stepped on the ground again, and the 6 spirit armor appeared again. At the same time, golden light flashed on his fist. Han Fei also wanted to feel the strength of a divine weapon, so he chose to take this blow head-on. Bam! The water-dividing seal exploded and Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood. This big seal had been with him for a long time, and the big turtle sealed in it had amazing defensive power, but it still couldn't resist the full blow of a divine weapon. Immediately afterward, the coiled turtle array blocked it again. In just 1 second, it shattered. The 6 spirit armor, shattered in just half a second. The spiritual energy protective cover, shattered in less than half a second. Han Fei stepped back, and golden light flashed on his fist. He punched out and the art of invincibility exploded. Clang! However, Han Fei just punched and then immediately moved his fist away. The divine weapon was really sharp. He felt that if he blocked it again, his fist would be pierced. Clang! The power of the harpoon finally fell on the ultra-quality battle suit. But at this point, its power had been weakened too much, and in the end, it failed to pierce through the ultra-quality battle suit on Han Fei's body. On the opposite side, the half-mermaid suddenly shattered, and behind him, an identical half-mermaid suddenly emerged from the void. With a wave of his hand, the golden battle suit and the golden harpoon were put on again. Damn it, how can you be so strong? Han Fei was stunned. Fuck, another immortal seal. Han Fei was speechless. In fact, he should have thought of it. These half-mermaid heavenly talents were also heavenly talents, and it was natural for them to have amulets and immortal seals. Han Fei couldn't help but be vigilant. Before, ordinary half-mermaids died. If this was the case, would there be a hammer strike hidden in their bodies? Han Fei suddenly thought of this. On the ice road, he didn't see a hammer strike. Perhaps that was due to the geographical environment. But here, this person's identity was so high, so there might be one. So Han Fei stepped on the ground and activated the majestic mystic spell. Sacrificing Punch. The big blazing red seal blasted across the sky with billowing murderous intent. Different from the War Soul art, the War Soul bow just now directly shattered the opponent's defense. But after that blow, Han Fei's arm was injured, and if he used it again, it would damage his foundation. And the sacrificing punch was also very powerful. Even if the opponent had a divine battle suit and forcibly protected his body, the powerful power of the sacrificing punch would still be enough to kill him. The whole ice palace was filled with murderous intent. Seeing this punch, the opponent's face changed completely. Who the fuck told me this was a spirit gatherer? This guy's main profession must be a soul warrior, and he must be a top heavenly talent among soul warriors. However, in the face of such a powerful punch, he was horrified and felt that he couldn't avoid it. The fist mark had already locked on him, so he had to fight. See God body. Let's die together. Hearing this, Han Fei hurriedly poured a mouthful of candle dragon blood into his body. Then, he stepped on the ground and activated the 6 spirit armor and the coiled turtle array. Sure enough, the half-mermaid's body suddenly expanded, and Han Fei saw that a phantom walked out of his body and pierced at Han Fei with a spear. Overlord Spear. Boom! In front of Han Fei, an iron tower-like figure appeared. This person was wearing a weird armor, covered with strange patterns from head to toe. He was holding a huge shield as tall as a man in his left hand, holding the embroidery needle in his right hand, and the coiled turtle array and the 6 spirit armor were still revolving around him. Rumble, Han Fei and the man were sent flying backward at the same time as if hit by a mountain. The two of them were crushed hundreds of meters on the ice ground. Puff! Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood and struggled to sit up. With a thought from him, the iron tower-like man bounced and stood on the ice again, but the big shield in his hand was completely useless. Han Fei chuckled. Overlord, I have the world. So what if you have the death strike? You still can't kill me. Han Fei cast the divine healing technique on himself and then said coldly, this kind of thing won't happen again. Although you are a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, you are a weapon after all. You can't defy the heavens. Do you really think I can't do anything to you? The first update. I wish everyone that the neon lights will rise outside the window in the coming year, and the purple air will come from the east. End of this chapter. Chapter 699. Han Fei had to admit that these half-mermaid heavenly talents were really strong. Even though they were killed by him in the end, it couldn't hide the fact that they were unparalleled. The woman reappeared and glanced at Han Fei. You do have a lot of trump cards. If 2 such half-mermaid heavenly talents appear at the same time, can you still kill them? Han Fei sneered. I know there are 2 more outside. But I'm afraid that if I take out my real trump card, I'll destroy you too. The woman snorted. Okay, that's enough. Destroy the snow god's temple, and you can leave. Han Fei suddenly said, don't. I suddenly find that I've been led by you. Let me imagine, if I hadn't come in first, maybe you would have spread the soul-splitting technique too, right? The woman frowned. Why do you say that? Han Fei grinned. The problem is that there are no good people in the snow god's temple. You said that the soul-splitting technique can't be spread to outsiders in case it falls into the hands of those with ulterior motives. But I met 2 people in a row, and both of them were possessing others. Besides, there should be 2 half-mermaids and a human being outside that had been possessed. How do you explain that? The woman said, because the people of the snow god's temple never thought that human beings would return again. If the sea monsters broke into the snow god's temple, the snow god's temple certainly wouldn't let them go. Han Fei smiled and walked straight to the ice throne, grabbing a spiritual fruit in his hand and biting it. That sounds reasonable. Then let me ask another question. Did the snow god's temple seal itself? The woman nodded. Of course. Han Fei said, then I'm curious. If that's the case, the snow god's temple must have had a life-and-death battle with the sea monsters. But why did I only see the heroic souls of the half-mermaids, but no human souls? Han Fei sat down on the ice throne and cast the divine healing technique on himself. The overlord stood on his side, holding the embroidery needle, like an iron guard. The woman said, at that time, most of the strong masters of the snow god's temple had left, and only a few stayed. It was these people who resisted wave after wave of attacks from the sea monsters. This battle lasted for 3 years before the snow god's temple was sealed. So, isn't it a matter of course that a half-mermaid has appeared? Han Fei sneered in his heart. Do you really think I don't know anything? How could there be no motivation for the half-mermaids to attack the snow god's temple at the risk of their lives? Your snow god's temple doesn't have any treasures, so why would they attack your home? But instead of asking immediately, he suddenly asked, what's the palace we were in earlier? What was on the altar? Look, so many geniuses have died in the snow god's palace. They were all humans. Although they lived in different eras, they should at least leave some benefits for humans. After all, we're still fighting the sea monsters. The woman said indifferently, didn't you see it on the altar? Actually, it's just a mark of mine to seal the power of the snow god's temple. Otherwise, why do you think the snow god's temple could be sealed until now? Han Fei immediately rose and stuffed the spiritual fruit into his mouth. Okay. Then tell me, how do I destroy the snow god's temple? Should I use Snowmorn? Well, then you have to lend me some strength. The woman shook her head. That's unnecessary. I'll lead the way for you. Go to the altar and destroy the arrays that maintain the seal. What are you doing? While the woman was talking, Han Fei suddenly grabbed the hilt of Snowmorn and roared, "Melt it!" The overlord immediately took action. The embroidery needle thickened and pressed on Snowmorn. At the same time, abundant spiritual energy surged out of Han Fei's body and enshrouded Snowmorn, burning it crazily. The woman roared, "What are you doing?" Han Fei cursed, "I was almost fooled by you. You're not the master of the snow god's temple at all. Calabash, seal her completely." Immediately, the demon purification pot appeared. 2 vines simply latched onto Snowmorn. At this moment, the woman was absorbed into the sword. However, as a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, it struggled crazily, trying to get rid of the demon purification pot. At that moment, the sword aura raged and left countless cuts on Han Fei's battle suit. However, Han Fei grabbed the hilt of the sword with all his strength. The arrays on the overlord were fully activated, and he held the sword with the embroidery needle. The demon purification pot grabbed the sword and dragged it into the pot. Even a sea-quelling bizarre treasure couldn't get away. After all, it was just a sword. Also, it had been here for too many years. The woman exclaimed, "Why?" Han Fei's muscles bulged, and he activated the majestic mystic spell to the maximum, roaring, "Why? Don't you know why? The hero's soul exists to protect the snow god's temple. You're telling me that the hero's soul appeared when she tried to break into the snow god's temple? Just now, you pretended to be a human and tried to attack me twice. Is that what you did to human beings? A moment ago, you claimed that you were testing my strength, but you let in the strongest half-mermaid. You want to kill me, don't you? You mentioned destroying the snow god's temple twice. I didn't even ask you anything. Why did you destroy it? Do you really think I'll believe you? If I hadn't wanted to get some useful information from you, I would have killed you already." The demon purification pot was unleashing terrifying power. Otherwise, Han Fei and the overlord wouldn't have been able to control Snowmorn. The woman was screaming crazily, "What's this? How is it possible? How can it seal a sea-quelling bizarre treasure? Let me go. I'll tell you." Han Fei roared, "It's too late. I don't want to know anymore when I know that you're not the master of the snow god's temple. If my guess is correct, you're not a human at all, but a sea demon, right?" Han Fei's lips curled. "Why are sea demons guarding this place? They have their reasons. I even suspect that the snow god's temple wasn't built by human beings at all. Instead, it belongs to the Sea Clan. Take it." Ah! Under the violent quakes of the demon purification pot, Snowmorn was finally taken in. Then, the spiritual energy in Han Fei's body plummeted crazily, and the spiritual stones in Forge the Universe cracked one after another. The spiritual spring turned into spiritual energy and disappeared into the demon purification pot like running water. The demon purification pot swirled and didn't stop until it ran out of spiritual energy. Han Fei was almost in tears. The seal could be replaced. If he didn't replace it, he would have purged the sword's spirit in Snowmorn. It was not hard to imagine the consequences. It would cost hundreds of thousands of points of spiritual energy to seal a creature above level 40. This was a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. The woman had been a sword spirit for countless years, but it hadn't been erased yet. It was not hard to imagine how strong she was. At this moment, the consumption of spiritual energy wasn't as simple as 10 or 20,000 points. It was 1,000,000 points that disappeared. After half an hour, the spiritual spring in Han Fei's Forge the Universe was completely gone, and 80% of the spiritual stones were broken. The demon purification pot was finally stabilized. When Snowmorn was spat out, Han Fei felt that the body of the sword turned blue. All of a sudden, the sword became glamorous and pure. Han Fei had almost vomited blood to refine the treasure. Seeing that the woman had been purged, he wiped his hand on the body of the sword without any hesitation. Hey! Purge! However, when Han Fei's blood sank into Snowmorn, a lot of his blood was drained in the blink of an eye. Han Fei estimated that at least 20% of his blood had been drained. Shoot! What's going on? Han Fei quickly poured the candle dragon blood into his mouth. Then, he took out a handful of spiritual fruits and stuffed them into his body. However, the blood on his palm was still flowing out crazily and absorbed by Snowmorn. Han Fei felt that his head was about to explode. He had never refined a super weapon such as a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. He had a needle, but he had never refined it. The needle wouldn't let him refine it either. But at this moment, Snowmorn had been polished by the demon purification pot and turned into a real masterless weapon. The first thing that Han Fei could think of was to refine it. But who knew? Was it so difficult to refine a sea-quelling bizarre treasure? 100 seconds later, Han Fei realized that it was not good. His strength plummeted, and more than half of his blood had been drained. Immediately, Han Fei dared not waste any time. He sat cross-legged and began to practice the indestructible body. At such a moment, only by practicing the indestructible body could he draw out the powerful recovery ability of the indestructible body and create new blood. Only in such a way could he not be drained by Snowmorn. During that time, Han Fei was almost enshrouded in a cluster of thick spiritual energy. Every few dozen breaths, dozens of spirit fruits would fly out. Han Fei refined himself as a material for a spiritual weapon with the spirit-fusing scripture. It couldn't be helped. To activate the indestructible body required terrifying power that couldn't be achieved through regular means. After practicing the indestructible body several times, he could only polish it with spiritual energy when he just got it. What happened next? Candle Dragon Blood, Fish Fire, Ninth Heaven Lightning, 10,000-year-old Big Red Trunks Tree Fire, Ren Tianfei's Magma Underground Fire, only such power could promote the rapid changes of the indestructible body crazily. At this moment, even if Han Fei cultivated as hard as he could only maintain the preliminary regeneration ability of the indestructible body. Another half an hour passed. Han Fei's skin was broken, and he was dripping with blood. However, Han Fei frowned. Not enough, still not enough. What should I do? The second night watch. I wish everyone a cup of wine to your heart's content, and a peaceful place in the world. End of this chapter. Chapter 700. It turned out that the ice under Han Fei's butt had been melted and a big hole had been made. But this was still not enough. Han Fei needed more power to stimulate the regeneration ability of the indestructible body art. Han Fei swallowed hard. In the past half an hour, even with the regeneration power of the indestructible body art, 70% of his essence blood had been drawn. And it wasn't over yet. Let's do it. With my current physique, I should be able to resist that thing. With a thought from Han Fei, a white jade box appeared in Han Fei's hand. When the box was opened, a red stone appeared. Suddenly, there was a raging flame around him, and Han Fei was burned in it. This red flame origin crystal was obtained from the Fire Cloud Cave when he was still in the level 2 fishery. At that time, Han Fei and the other 4 barely got it with the help of the Blue Sea Wandering Dragon Bone. At this moment, Han Fei grabbed the red flame origin crystal with one hand. Suddenly, the indestructible body art was strengthened by a level, and Han Fei's body was badly mutilated, after a long time. Anyway, when Han Fei found that there were only 10 ultra-quality spiritual stones left in Forge the Universe, the essence blood in his body was no longer consumed. Han Fei quickly stuffed the red flame origin crystal into the box. However, the flame intensity of the red flame origin crystal at this moment was not as high as at the beginning. Just like the conservation of energy, endless heat was used to accelerate the indestructible body art. The power of the red flame origin crystal was gradually being stripped away. Putting away the red flame origin crystal, Han Fei opened his eyes. Red light spurted out of his eyes again, and it took a long time for his eyes to return to normal. In front of him, an extremely pure blue sword floated in front of him. With a thought, Han Fei controlled Snowmorn and slashed casually. Puff! In an instant, the spiritual energy in Han Fei's body was completely drained, and he vomited a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, he had the follow-up spiritual energy to replenish it. Otherwise, he would have been sucked dry just like that. Han Fei immediately cramped, and the stored spiritual energy crazily poured into his body. After a few dozen breaths, he wearily propped himself up with his hands. When Han Fei crawled out of the pit, he discovered, to his shock, that a sword mark extended all the way from his feet to the outside of the ice palace. That 100-meter-tall ice gate was lying on the ground, outside, on the icy road. Sword marks had been left 800 meters away, creating an icy ravine. Gulp! Han Fei swallowed. Is this the power of the sea-quelling bizarre treasure? Han Fei swallowed crazily. Isn't this too fucking strong? He had really just casually slashed at it just now. In the end, he had destroyed the ice palace and created such a huge crack. Such destructive power made Han Fei's blood freeze. Oh my god. Han Fei was completely dumbfounded. He had been using the embroidery needle all the time. Apart from being indestructible, heavy, and able to grow bigger, there were no other advantages to speak of. Moreover, he had to hold the embroidery needle with his own hands. You want to use your mind to control it? That was simply impossible. However, Snowmorn was unbelievably powerful. Just this casual sword strike was even more powerful than the sacrificing fist seal. After all, even the sacrificing punch failed to shatter the ice gate when it was fully unleashed. However, Snowmorn shattered the gate after only one attack. Also, the sword aura extended more than 800 meters away, which suggested its power. Also, Snowmorn didn't have a weapon spirit at all at this moment. If a super weapon spirit was sealed in Snowmorn, the consequences would be unimaginable. He would probably be sucked to death instantly. Horrified, Han Fei hurried to put Snowmorn back. He couldn't afford to use it right now. If he used it casually, he would really be at the mercy of others. Besides, as an intermediate hanging fisher, if he exerted such amazing power, it would be impossible for him to survive. It was not hard to imagine what would happen if he unleashed such shocking power. Crack! Crack, crack! The moment the ice palace was pierced through, the array foundation under the palace was broken. The enormous palace was full of cracks, and the ice above his head was falling apart. Han Fei quickly rushed out of the ice palace. Of course, the dead half-mermaid was also stored in Forge the Universe by Han Fei. After all, this guy's body was full of treasures. A divine battle suit and a divine harpoon were definitely more valuable than ultra-quality spiritual weapons. A moment later, ice fell from the door, and the entire palace collapsed with a loud rumble. The moment the palace collapsed, spiritual energy surged crazily. Then, the mist gradually dispersed. When Han Fei could see the surroundings clearly again, he found that they were still in the underground palace. However, the location where everyone appeared was on the surface of the ice. The gravity here seemed to have disappeared. The huge steels in the sky had all fallen down, smashing everywhere. Many of the sculptures had been smashed over. Han Fei, are you alright? Tang Gu appeared 1,000 meters away from Han Fei. However, he was dripping with blood, as if he had just been through a fierce battle. Apart from Tang Gu, Meng Guiyi was protecting Su Hongye in the array. The two of them were squatting on the ground. Ning Dong was carrying Yi Xiangxiang in one hand and Zhao Jiayi in the other, emitting a bloody vibe. Chen Aochen's muscles were bulging, and he seemed to be fighting someone. It was quite strange for him to suddenly return to the underground palace. Gong Yuehan's clothes were torn, and her arms were dyed red with blood, but her face was still cold. On the other side, one of the half-mermaids was frozen into ice and lying on the ground. He seemed to be dead. Among the other four, 3 were seriously injured and covered in blood. Only the girl in the golden battle suit was standing proudly, pointing her harpoon at Han Fei and the others. Apart from Han Fei and the others, Chen Chen, who had been possessed, and a half-mermaid were standing together and looking at them vigilantly. Ning Dong said, Han Fei, healing technique. Han Fei stepped forward and cast a divine healing technique on Tang Gu. Then, he cast a healing technique on Yi Xiangxiang and Zhao Jiai. Han Fei was stunned. Are there only so few of us left? Meng Yi removed the array and walked over. We somehow fell into a super array just now. Someone must have broken the array. That's why we showed up. Zhao Jiai was stretching his body with the divine healing technique. Hearing this, he couldn't help but ask, "You're the best at arrays here. Didn't you break the array?" Meng Yi looked at Han Fei, as if asking. Han Fei said casually, "You know that I'm not as good at arrays as you are. However, breaking arrays doesn't necessarily mean that I know arrays. It's possible that I broke the array by force." Tang Gu said solemnly, "At the beginning, someone pretended to be one of us. Did you see that?" At this moment, although everybody was approaching, everyone kept a distance from each other. Tang Gu even spoke to Han Fei telepathically, "Where do you usually keep the valuable things in our family?" Han Fei replied with a smile, "In the small cliff cave in the house. What's the name of the body-refining combat technique you left me?" Tang Gu grinned. Mystic Body Technique. Han Fei and Tang Gu confirmed their relationship. However, it might not be the case for others. Han Fei didn't trust them now. Treatment was treatment, and spiritual energy replenishment was spiritual energy replenishment. But to talk about trust now. After the Frostmourne incident, the only person Han Fei trusted now was Tang Gu. Tang Gu must be the same. Gong Yuan said, "Keep your distance before you go out." Zhao Jiai smiled and suddenly said, "Everybody must have been impersonated. I don't know if it's someone else. But I'm sure it's not old Ning. This guy is too tough. He killed a half-mermaid alone and saved me and Yi Xiangxiang." Meng Yi asked, "How's Yi Xiangxiang?" The corner of Ning Dong's mouth shivered. He ran into the possessed Chen Chen, but he couldn't defeat him. Meng Yi pondered for a moment. "I know you're confused. However, there's one thing that hasn't changed, that is, we're all human beings now. So, the 4 half-mermaids, the possessed Chen Chen, and the other half-mermaid are our enemies." Chen Aochen said gloomily, "I'm going to meet the 2 possessed monsters." Gong Yuan followed. "Count me in." At this moment, everybody was recovering. The half-mermaids, the old monsters, and their own side were all recovering. Zhao Jiai was heavily injured. Therefore, Han Fei took on the responsibility of supplying spiritual energy and healing everybody's wounds. Zhao Jiai glanced at him. "I'm sure it's not Brother Duan." "Ha. Anyway, it's him. You're not possessed either." Han Fei grinned. "If I were possessed, I would have killed you. Why would I heal you?" Han Fei's greatest output of spiritual energy was given to Tang Gu and Ning Dong. The moment their spiritual energy recovered, they looked at each other. Suddenly, they charged at the half-mermaids. They must have fought a lot in the snow-ground array. Even the male half-mermaid in a golden battle suit was heavily injured at this moment. The female half-mermaid was about to burst out, when the male half-mermaid suddenly grabbed her and threw her to the entrance of the cave far away. "Get out. Go back alive and tell everyone about the prehistoric relics." The female half-mermaid roared and turned to leave quickly. She had suffered a crushing defeat this time. Before she left, she glanced at Han Fei and Meng Yi. They suffered a great loss this time. The first time was because of Han Fei. That bastard's wrong guidance caused them to lose nearly 10 people at the beginning. The second time, she thought it was Meng Yi who set up arrays and poisons to ambush them in the snow. More than half of the half-mermaids were killed or wounded in the ice road, so she remembered them. If she knew that it was Han Fei who proposed the second ambush, how would she feel now? Of course, she probably wouldn't be able to see Han Fei again. Because Han Fei was using Duan Zhang's face. The two heavily wounded half-mermaid heavenly talents, on the other hand, charged at Tang Gu and Ning Dong crazily. The male half-mermaid in golden armor, on the other hand, simply rushed to the altar at the center without caring about the safety of his companions. Su Hongya, on the other hand, looked at where the female half-mermaid escaped. "I'll go after that woman." Meng Yi said, "Come back. You're no match for her." Meng Yi glanced at Han Fei and thought to himself, "Aren't you going to stop that woman from running?" Han Fei glanced at the injured people, as if to say, "Look at them. They're all wounded and disabled. Do you think I have time to stop them?" The third chapter. I wish everyone a youthful and everlasting youth, a carefree and unfettered time of warmth. End of this chapter. Chapter 701. Han Fei had his own plan. If he chased after it, there was an 80% chance that he could kill the half-mermaid. However, the other party was one of the leading half-mermaid heavenly talents, who had an immortal seal. If the half-mermaid didn't want to fight and only wanted to run away, Han Fei wouldn't be able to kill it in a short time. Unless he used Snowmorn again, he would not be able to do it. But Han Fei really didn't dare to use it now. He didn't know if he could recover after using it. More importantly, if the sword spirit in Snowmorn wasn't the master of the snow god's temple, then the 30-meter-tall phantom on the altar not far away should be the master of the snow god's temple. Since the sword spirit asked him to destroy the snow god's temple, there must be something on the altar. If he left, how could he compete for it? Besides, Han Fei thought, even if one sea demon escaped, so what? According to the sword spirit, the snow god's temple could be destroyed. The spiritual energy here had been drained, and he had obtained the array and the soul-splitting technique. All he needed was the thing on the altar. As long as he got that thing, the snow god's temple would be destroyed. Why should he care if a sea demon escaped? In fact, Han Fei and the others didn't need to react at all. Outside, on the sea, the half-mermaids were already furious. They're all dead. Only Yu Ling and Yu Bei are left. Those damned humans. There must be even stronger heavens chosen hidden in their ranks. Liang Tian's expression was also extremely ugly. On the human side, 11 life tablets had cracked, which meant that there were only 9 people left. This time, 20 heavenly talents had been transferred here. All of them were extremely talented. 11 people had died in a secret realm. How terrifying was this secret realm? It was not hard to imagine. In the field, Tang Gu said to Han Fei via voice transmission, "You go to the altar." Yi Xiangxiang had just woken up and was swallowing pills. She glanced at Han Fei. "Compete for treasures. At this point, we can't let the half-mermaid get away with it." Han Fei nodded and stepped on the ground, covering himself with a wind travel array. At the same time, he activated the majestic mystic spell, and the 64-dimensional ichthyosaur dance simulated the sea racing technique, directly rushing toward those densely packed statues. He didn't plan to take a detour. He was going to ram his way through. The male half-mermaid started faster than Han Fei. Therefore, at this moment, he was already more than 800 meters into the statue area. Moreover, he was still accelerating, still flying. Bang bang bang. In front of Han Fei, the statues were smashed into pieces by his rampage. The half-mermaid roared. He turned around to take a look, and in the next second, a thick purple light erupted from his body. Then, a purple lobster that was nearly 20 meters long appeared in the statue. The lobster's entire body was purple, and there were sparkling spots of light on its shell. With a casual swing of its huge pincers, 7 or 8 statues were crushed. A string of information emerged in Han Fei's eyes. Name: Amethyst Lobster, Yu Bei's associated spirit. Introduction: mutated from the red crystal lobster, it has extremely strong defense and destructive power. Its speed is extremely fast, and the force of its pincers can reach millions of kilograms. Level 46 Quality: exotic, mutated, contains spiritual energy greater than 6,225 points. Food omnivorous. Combat skills. Purple crystal body contains soul power 1, 594. Han Fei's face changed slightly. No wonder this guy could survive until now. Just now, Tang Ji's enemy should be this guy. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to resist the power of the white dragon feather lobster at all. But this half-mermaid blocked it and still had strength to spare. Han Fei immediately roared, "Attach!" In an instant, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and little fatty were attached to him. Swoosh 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 swoosh. Among the statues, black chains moved like snakes. From time to time, they rolled up a statue and smashed it at the purple gold lobster. At this moment, Han Fei, in the eyes of others, was a monster with 9 chains dancing wildly in the air. And he himself, like a human-shaped tyrannosaurus, shattered all the statues wherever he went. Behind him, Ning Dong and Tang Gu had already killed the 2 half-mermaids who were already seriously injured. And the 2 old guys who had possessed him, the half-mermaid, were fighting Chen Aochen. Chen Chen also rushed into the group of statues. However, he did not rush in the direction of Han Fei and Yu Bei. Gong Yuehan was chasing him. This woman stepped in the air, holding a long sword in her hand, and the illusion of an azure dragon appeared. Chen Chen roared, "The snow god's temple is not a place for you to mess around. You'll all die here." As Chen Chen roared, a flying sword in his hand was shot at a piece of ice jade on the altar. At the same time, he suddenly floated in the air, and his body suddenly exploded. A weird soul power swept across the entire area of statues. Gong Yuehan knew that it was not good and immediately warned, "Something is wrong with the statues." At the moment when Chen Chen blew himself up, the statues seemed to be alive, and their eyes beamed with a blue light. The statues. They were resurrected. Tang Gu roared, and spiritual energy burst out from his arms. With a boom, he charged into the group of statues. Ning Dong shouted, "Gong Yuehan, come back." Meng Yi, set up the array. Chen Aochen had gone crazy at this moment. His fists were so fierce that he had already pressed the possessed half-mermaid to the ground. Half of its body had almost been blown up by him. The half-mermaid smiled miserably. "It's too late to break the seal after such a long time. Otherwise, how can you juniors defeat us?" Boom! The half-mermaid also blew itself up, and Chen Aochen was directly blown into the sky. An amulet appeared in front of him and barely blocked the blow. Cough! Chen Aochen vomited a mouthful of blood and stuffed a mouthful of pills into his mouth. Before he completely landed, he had already charged at the central altar. At this moment, except for the half-mermaid, he was the only one left. However, the treasure was probably on the altar. None of them were selfless people. Wouldn't it belong to whoever snatched it? Yi Xiangxiang recovered a bit of her strength. Biting a spiritual pill in her mouth, she suddenly opened her eyes. "I'm going to the altar." After that, she jumped and flashed, and Yi Xiangxiang had already appeared in the area of statues. However, at this moment, the area of statues was full of devils. Although the stone golems didn't seem very strong, they were still very powerful when they were controlled by the 2 old monsters with the soul-splitting technique. In particular, Qin Chen's previous blow at the altar seemed to have activated a certain array. Boundless murderous aura emerged from the area of statues and flooded into the bodies of those statues. Hu! Hum! Hum! Kacha! Attacks that were as strong as those of hanging fishers burst out. Yu Bei was about to reach the edge of the altar, but he was surrounded by hundreds of statues. In his eyes, some of the statues were still launching attacks at this moment. Bam! 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 Every time the 9-star chains attacked, a statue would be pierced. The 9 chains, with 9 statues hanging on them, were sweeping crazily. Standing in Meng Yi's defense array, Su Hongye looked at the scene in shock. "So, you must be the top heavenly talents who have been hiding, right?" As a spirit gatherer, Zhao Jiayi was lost for words. Exactly. All the members of Old Meng's team are still alive. Also, Gong Yuehan. Duan Jiang. Who are they exactly? They're so strong, but they pretend to be regular members. Gong Yuehan said casually, give me spiritual energy. I'll go over. Su Hongye and Zhao Jiai were both stunned. You'll go over? Wait, the statues are all alive. How are you going to go over? Gong Yuehan glanced at him. Hurry up. Zhao Jiai smiled bitterly. He thought that he was strong enough as one of the captains of the 4 squads. However, at this moment, he realized that any of the captains here was unbelievably strong. Even Su Hongye's combat ability was extremely high. Or rather, it wasn't luck that he had survived to this moment. At the front, Han Fei was attacked one after another. He didn't dodge with the 108 Desolate God body or the evasion technique of the Tianfei sect. He was fighting for time. Those attacks weren't weak, but they couldn't shake him. It was the same for Yu Bei. He could only charge forward unstoppably because he was wearing a divine battle suit. But what about Han Fei? He was wearing an ultra-quality battle suit and even resisted all the attacks with his body. At this moment, he was approaching quickly and was only 200 meters away from him. At this moment, the two of them were only 2,000 meters away from the altar. Han Fei's eyes were cold. He suddenly punched out and launched the sacrificing punch again. However, the punch was not aimed at Yu Bei, but at a mystic light that was darting from the altar. Yu Bei took action at the same time, not daring to be careless. His body was burning, and his golden harpoon emitted dazzling golden light to block the weird mystic light too. Not just the two of them, but everyone who stepped into the statues this time was stared at by a mystic light. Seeing this, Yi Xiangxiang's doppelganger appeared and was hit. In fact, her real body had already surpassed her clone. After only one attack, Yi Xiangxiang was flung back and landed outside the arena. Then, she simply sat on the ground, with beads of sweat rolling off her head. Tang Gu roared, Dragon Soul Overlord body. A white dragon swallowed dragon flames and charged forward. Chen Aochen roared and punched out. Then, he blocked it with his fists, and his amulet flashed. Zhao Jiai was dumbfounded. Is this the power of a hanging fisher? Are they all fucking hidden fishers in disguise? Su Hongye opened her mouth. They're so strong. Han Fei drank a mouthful of candle dragon blood, and the 9-star chains had already locked the edge of the altar. With a swish, Han Fei surpassed Yu Bei at a high speed. Han Fei turned around and grinned. A dense mist burst out from the void. Then, tides surged, and Yu Bei was surrounded by the combination of Poison God, Infinity Water, and Poison King Smoke. Han Fei sneered. Hey, why are you running so fast? Are you going to be reincarnated? 4th update. I wish everyone, your eyes are bright, and the road ahead is without wind or waves. End of this chapter. Chapter 702. Yu Bei went crazy. He could resist the mist and the water blades, but he couldn't resist the invisible poisonous smoke at all. Although the divine battle suit on his body blocked the infinity water blades, he still felt that his internal organs were rolling and his stomach was aching. However, he still felt his internal organs churning, and his stomach was in so much pain that it felt like it was about to explode. Standing on the steps of the altar, Han Fei only took one step up. What happened on the steps into the sea last time was still deeply engraved in his head. So, Han Fei was very cautious at this moment. He was even ready to expose the Overlord. But, strangely, nothing seemed to have happened. Han Fei stepped out of the coiled turtle array and the 6 spirits armor, and the octopus behind him was staring at Yu Bei. As for the infinity water, I won't withdraw it. Just prepare to vomit and have diarrhea and die of exhaustion. Meng Yi said telepathically, be careful. Tang Gu said, be careful. Han Fei waved his hand and walked up to the altar in a few steps. There was an array on the altar that he couldn't understand. Han Fei didn't walk in but simply looked up from outside the array. The long dress of the enormous human-shaped phantom was fluttering, which made Han Fei's heart flutter. If I run to the center of the array and look up, wouldn't I be able to see everything? He wondered if the master of the snow god's temple was in the habit of wearing tights. However, when Han Fei's eyes fell on the eyes of the woman's phantom, he was surprised to find that the pair of eyes was staring at him. Shoot! Han Fei subconsciously took a step back. He really didn't like the people of the snow god's temple at all. Not good. In the next second, Han Fei seemed to be frozen and couldn't move at all. A strange fragrance crawled into his nose as if it were right next to him. Han Fei couldn't turn his head, but in little Fatty's eyes, he saw a waterfall of green hair that was dangling on his shoulder. Ha ha ha. Han Fei took a deep breath. He struggled to move his eyes, only to see a delicate face smiling at him. The head's chin was against his shoulder. The fragrance that seeped into one's heart was coming from the woman beside him. It could also be coming from her hair. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that his body was slightly tightened. Looking down, she saw a pair of jade-like hands wrapped around her waist and hugged it. Gulp! Han Fei swallowed and felt that his tears were about to fall. What the hell was going on? Han Fei slightly grinned. Hi! In Han Fei's sight, Yu Bei was still struggling in the infinity water. Tang Gu was still rushing left and right, and Gong Yuehan, who was furthest away, was already floating in the air. At this time, Han Fei didn't dare to move. Why was there a woman behind him? No one else reacted. Where did this woman come from? How was he able to appear behind her without making a sound? More importantly, why didn't he feel it when this woman pressed her chin against his shoulder? Something's wrong. Han Fei's body suddenly trembled. It didn't make sense. If there was really someone behind him, then little Fatty's vision should have been blocked by that person. Why was he still able to see everything in a 360-degree view? Han Fei gasped. Who are you? The woman didn't say anything. Han Fei didn't dare to ask. He simply felt that the woman's hands and face were as cold as ice. After a long time, suddenly, a vague voice came to Han Fei's ears. Why do you have demonic qi as a human being? Han Fei took a deep breath. Would you believe me if I told you that a half-mermaid injected demonic qi into my body when I killed her? The voice that seemed to come from nothingness sighed softly next to Han Fei's ears. Such a strong body and such a thick soul. And, the air of Snowmorn. Have you seen that woman? Han Fei was shocked. Yes, I have. Isn't that woman a sea demon? Han Fei felt that the hands that were holding him were slowly moving up from his abdomen, to his stomach, to his chest. Han Fei swallowed hard. The snow god's temple has sunk for countless years. You should be happy that it's back after the Age of Doom. The voice was vague as if it came from another time and space. But I'm already dead. Hiss. At that moment, Han Fei felt that 10,000 iron-head fish were galloping in his heart. Who am I talking to if you're dead? You're dead physically at best, but your soul is still here, isn't it? Before Han Fei figured out what to say, the woman's hands had already touched his face. It was freezing. That extremely low voice said faintly, "Hey. You don't have demonic qi. I get it. You're from there." Han Fei was lost for words. "Sister, I'm just an ordinary person. I certainly don't have demonic qi." Ha! Poor guy. You must have suffered a lot. Han Fei. Han Fei was lost for words. Girl, are you talking to me? Han Fei sensed that the hands on his face were retreating, and the fragrance on his side was dispersing too. Perhaps it was the wind, or perhaps it was from somewhere. A voice came out. Fine. I didn't expect that I would fall into your hands in the end. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Han Fei asked in a hurry. Wait, girl, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Can you explain it to me before you go? The voice chuckled. Remember, take your time. Take your time. Remember to come to me. My name is Bingxue Chu Ling. Han Fei was lost for words. Wait, why do I have to take my time? How can I find you if you're dead? Hello? Are you still there? Hello? Is the signal bad? Hello? Han Fei wanted to open his mouth, but when he opened his mouth, a white bead popped out of nowhere and suddenly crawled into his mouth. Then, the bead entered his throat through his mouth, and then dissipated into a stream of air, drifting into his dantian. Han Fei felt that his blood was freezing. What's this? Why did it run in on its own? I'm screwed. I'm screwed. I should have known that I couldn't go to such a weird place as the altar. In his dantian, there was a seed, an insect, and a white bead. There were already 3 things. Among them, the heaven spirit detoxifying insect was holding the seed. The white bead, however, was slowly rotating around the seed. Han Fei shivered all over, as if his body had been freed from a layer of shackles. At that moment, Han Fei suddenly turned around, only to see nothing. At this moment, Tang Ge glanced at Han Fei. Is there any danger up there? Han Fei looked at Tang Ge in a daze. No, when the woman came just now, Tang Ge was right where he was now. That woman had been talking to him for a long time. Why was Tang Ge still there? Han Fei immediately cast his fishing hook at Tang Ge. Tang Ge grasped the hook with one hand and flew up, landing directly on the altar. Yu Bei, on the other hand, was already lying on the ground, vomiting crazily as if he were heartbroken. However, Han Fei didn't collect the infinity water, because this man must have an immortal seal. After the seal was activated, he would have to kill him again in order to completely kill him. Also, the second kill might trigger the dying strike in the man's body. That thing couldn't be simple. Han Fei didn't want to block it again. He might as well kill him from a distance. Tang Ge was stunned after he went to the altar. Why is there nothing? Han Fei scratched his head. How should I explain it to you? Could it be that I was touched by a woman just now? Han Fei asked, did you see anything just now? Tang Ge shook his head. No. Weren't you standing here the whole time just now? Hiss. Han Fei secretly swallowed. Sure enough, Tang Ge and the others didn't see the woman just now. Ice and Snow Spirit. Looking for her. How the hell am I looking for her? Han Fei couldn't help but shake his head. Putting that aside for now, his priority was to kill Yu Bei. Gong Yuehan had already arrived. The first thing she said was, the power of those statues seems to be weakening. I don't know why, Han Fei instantly said, because there's not enough spiritual energy. This place is extremely short of spiritual energy in the first place. It's impossible for such an enormous array and so many statue guards to fight all the time. Gong Yuehan had no say in that regard. In fact, even Meng Yi thought so. But nobody knew that Han Fei was just making up an excuse. After all, in his opinion, the array had declined because the opportunity was gone. A moment later, everybody gathered around. Yi Xiangxiang was lost for words. Why is there nothing here? I thought that there would be something on the table. Su Hongye added, so, we've actually run around here for nothing. We've encountered a lot of dangers, but we haven't encountered any opportunities at all. Meng Yi nodded. The soul-splitting technique definitely exists. However, we can't get it from those old monsters. Chen Aochen nodded. I did find something. Everybody looked at him. Chen Aochen said, I had a great time fighting. I feel that I've made a lot of progress. I might be able to make a breakthrough after I go back and cultivate in seclusion for a while. Humph. Everybody was lost for words. They thought that he had found something. Ning Dong scoffed. Boring. We lost 11 people in this crappy place. Han Fei quickly interrupted, let's kill this guy first. This half-mermaid is dying, and the immortal seal is about to be activated. After we kill him again, we should be able to get out. Tang Ge was stunned. The immortal seal. Not good. Run. With that, Tang Ge pulled Han Fei and rushed out. Han Fei asked, "What's wrong?" The others all ran with him, dumbfounded, not knowing what was going on. Tang Ge roared, "I've killed this guy once, and the immortal seal has been activated." Hiss. Just at this moment, a powerful force swept over. The fifth watch. I wish everyone, the lights are waning, and the beauties will hold hands and grow old together. End of this chapter. Chapter 703. One dying strike naturally wouldn't be able to kill all 9 of them. Also, all 9 of them were heavenly talents. Meng Yi and Han Fei led the arrays, Ning Dong blocked the attacks, Gong Yuehan attacked with her sword, Tang Ge attacked with his halberd, and Chen Aochen punched with his fists. Everybody put up a strong resistance. In addition, everyone had run quite a distance, so basically, they only spat out a mouthful of blood before they managed to block it. Kacha! In the underground palace, the ceiling suddenly cracked. When everyone saw this, they immediately thought to themselves, not good. Meng Yi shouted, "Run!" Half an hour passed. On the surface of the sea, waves were surging, and the seabed was roaring. A swift figure suddenly broke out of the water and rushed directly to the half-mermaid's side. Liang Tian sneered when he saw that. Why? There's only one left. The leader of the half-mermaids was rather unsteady. He looked at Yu Ling, who had escaped and seemed to be talking telepathically. A moment later, the half-mermaid pointed his harpoon at the surface of the sea, and an enormous wave rose to the sky. Liang Tian sneered and unleashed a 1,000-meter-long aura with his longsword. The sword cut off the flow, and the huge wave collapsed with a loud crash. Liang Tian said casually, "You and I both know that this treasure trove is very dangerous. Since you lost, don't complain. If you have any resentment, swallow it." The half-mermaid leader sneered. "I'd like to see how many human beings are left." After another few hundred seconds, the bottom of the sea was shaking more and more violently, and turbulence was formed on the surface of the sea. Liang Tian frowned. "That's not right. How could such a treasure trove that has existed for such a long time collapse so easily when no experts have entered it?" Someone asked anxiously, "Are our people still not out?" Hardly had the man said that when he grinned and said, "They're out." Meng Yi, Tang Ge, and the others broke out of the water one after another. Su Hongye was still blaming Han Fei. "Are you out of your mind? It's too late. You want to go back and collect the bodies?" Han Fei chuckled. "What do you know? Divine weapons. Would I be an idiot if I didn't collect them?" Zhao Jiayi said, "Tisk, tsk. What's your name, Brother Duan?" Han Fei said shamelessly, "I'm Duan Jiang." Zhao Jiayi rolled his eyes. "Do you think I'll believe you? If you're Duan Jiang, I'll cut off my head and let you kick it like a ball." After seeing Han Fei and the others, on the human side, many powerhouses suddenly looked a little relieved. Someone heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there are still 9 people left. Someone was gratified. Good, good, good. It's better than the other side. They only have 1 left. Someone asked, "What treasures have you obtained?" Meng Yi said, "Senior, there's nothing inside. There are traps everywhere. The only spell that might be extremely powerful is called the soul-splitting spell. It seems to be able to preserve one's soul for later possession." Possession? Impossible. Who knows how many years have passed since that happened? How could a remnant soul be left behind? Yi Xiangxiang said, "It's true. Several of us have been possessed." Right, there's also that Sumo. He's not human at all. He's a traitor, a sea demon spy. Spy? It was getting more and more ridiculous. Sumo's identity can't be wrong. How could he be a spy? Impossible. If it's a sea demon, why doesn't it have demonic aura? Su Hongye said, "We all saw it. Sumo suddenly went on a rampage and heavily wounded me. I might have been killed if it weren't for Xiangxiang and Tang Gu. Liang Tian looked at the half-mermaid leader thoughtfully and said to everyone, "You go back first. Now that the treasure trove has been broken, I'll see if I can find anything else." The half-mermaid leader seemed to be thinking the same and dove into the sea. Han Fei and the others flew back at full speed on the boat. Han Fei asked, "The place down there has already collapsed. Can you go there now, Senior Liang Tian?" Someone said, "It's exactly because the seal has been completely broken that they can enter. Otherwise, the place might have collapsed if they broke the seal in the beginning. They can only look for opportunities in the ruins at best." Liang Tian didn't return until 6 hours later. After Liang Tian returned, everybody began to describe their experience in the snow god's temple. Only then did Han Fei discover that among the remaining 8 people, Gong Yuehan and Ning Dong were also almost possessed. However, the explanation of these 2 people was very simple. Gong Yuehan simply said that her teacher planted a soul-protecting power in her head. Ning Dong's answer was even simpler. He had a soul-protecting secret treasure. Just from this point alone, one could tell that these 2 people had quite a background. Tang Gu couldn't avoid it. After all, Yi Xiangxiang and Su Hongye both saw it. At that time, the pressure of Tang Jiyi's soul had pressed the 3 of them to the ground, which was no joke. So, Tang Gu said calmly that it was a mysterious method that his teacher set up. Everybody knew who Tang Gu was. He was a distinguished disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect. They even knew the relationship between Tang Gu and Mu Ling. Also, with Yi Xiangxiang and Su Hongye's testimonies, nobody doubted it at all. As for Han Fei, he did exactly the same. Everybody claimed that it was a gift from their seniors, and Han Fei was no exception. So, Han Fei said, "It's a mental barrier that my old man set up for me. It's not a problem for me to possess someone." Liang Tian instantly asked, "Aren't you from the Thug Academy?" Han Fei nodded. "That's right. That's why my old man is awesome." Liang Tian frowned. "Isn't the Thug Academy supposed to let the students explore on their own?" "Everything is in the students' own hands." Han Fei was briefly stunned. Why did Liang Tian know the Thug Academy so well? Han Fei began to brag. "That was before. Now, nobody is in the Thug Academy, so I've given them everything. I have both the amulet and the immortal seal, so it's not surprising." Liang Tian slightly nodded and asked, "I'm told that you were the first to charge to the altar in the underground palace. What did you see?" Han Fei blinked and said, "I only saw an array on the ground. But I couldn't understand it, so I didn't go in. Also, everybody saw the illusion of a woman floating above my head." Liang Tian asked, "Nothing else?" Han Fei shook his head. "Nothing else. I went up first, and Tang Gu came later. Then, Gong Yuehan came. We all stood by the altar and didn't move at all. Everybody was watching us." Liang Tian nodded. "Okay, you can go back now. You've made multiple contributions this time by luring the sea demons astray and setting traps to ambush others. Considering your performance, you've been granted the title of Guardian of the Sea. Also, I'm told that you looted a divine battle suit and 2 divine harpoons, right?" Han Fei instantly stepped back. "Senior, they're not from the treasure trove. They're my trophies, right?" Liang Tian said casually, "You can keep 1 harpoon. Submit the battle suit and the harpoon. I'll give you 2 million points of credit." Han Fei was lost for words. He couldn't have looked more pained and regretful. "Senior, those are divine weapons. Are they only worth 2 million points of credit?" Liang Tian shook his head helplessly. "Although this is a little too much. Although it's a bit outrageous, you know how rare divine weapons are on the Scattered Stars Island. Also, you must know that the golden battle suit and the golden harpoon are not divine weapons." Han Fei instantly said, "That's impossible. I've seen the defense and attack power of those things in person. They're unbelievably strong. They're very similar to the one in Yuji's hand that I fought last time. Liang Tian chuckled. You're just playing tricks. You're a refiner yourself, and you've seen semi-divine weapons and divine weapons. How can you not tell them apart? You'll know it when you ask Beihua later. Also, the Scattered Stars Island bought your battle suit and harpoon mainly for the Scattered Stars 4th unit to study. Do you think they'll give them to you? Just give them to them. After all, there's a reward. Han Fei asked timidly, what if I don't want to give them to you? Liang Tian glanced at Han Fei. Then, it won't be so easy for you to do your one-stop refining and soul sealing promotion every day. Han Fei instantly gritted his teeth. Then. Forget it. I'll just give them to you. Well. I'm just so selfless. Liang Tian staggered. Selfless? Selfless? Liang Tian said angrily, get the hell out of here. Handing over the golden battle suit and the harpoon, Han Fei was about to leave. After only 2 steps, Han Fei suddenly looked back. Senior, I've killed 2 peerless heavenly talents and more than 5 regular heavenly talents. Can I count my achievement of slaying 100 people? Liang Tian staggered again. I'll count your 30 heads. Your waist tag will have a number on it later. Hearing that, Han Fei instantly put on a big smile. That's good enough. Later, he would find a way to deal with 70. Well, 7 peerless heavenly talents, and he would be able to slay 100 people. At that time, the 5-star star rank and the logistics division would get a discount. Huh. It seems that the honorary title of Guardian of the Sea can be discounted too. How much is it? Forget it. I'll go to Lurunquang later. After he left the Scattered Stars 1st unit, Han Fei turned right and entered the Scattered Stars 4th unit. That was the benefit of being in 2 departments. It was almost impossible for ordinary people to meet each other in different departments. They would only get to know each other during special operations. Or, like Guan Qingyan and Mu Jia, they were so famous that it was hard for people not to know them, so they couldn't disguise themselves. It was rare for Han Fei to make a turn right after he left home. Uncle Beihua, the 6th chapter. I wish all of you that the flowers will bloom in the coming year, and that you may lean against the railing and look at the world with a smile. End of this chapter. Chapter 704. On the 4th unit side, Han Fei didn't see Beihua, Guan Qingyan, or Mu Jia, but Xie Qingqing, who he had met a few times, was circling. Xie Qingqing was wearing a long, bright red dress, which swayed along with her body and spun around. Seeing Xie Qingqing, Han Fei tried to sneak away. However, Xie Qingqing shouted, Han Fei, come here, come here. Han Fei was lost for words. Damn it, I shouldn't have spoken just now. Gritting his teeth, Han Fei walked to her and asked, Sister Qingqing, what's your style? Xie Qingqing stood straight and asked, do you think I look good? Han Fei sweated. Yes, yes. Sister Qingqing, well, I'm in a hurry. I have to go. Xie Qingqing grabbed Han Fei. Wait a moment. You haven't even looked at me, and you're saying that I look good? Han Fei smiled awkwardly. Then I won't look at you. I know you look good, Sister Qingqing. Do I need to look at you? Anyone with a discerning eye knows. Xie Qingqing chuckled. Okay, I'll stop teasing you. What do you think of my dress? I sealed the soul with a fiery fish. However, I feel that the dress is a little too long. Do you think I should shorten it? Han Fei was lost for words. He thought to himself, you're going to the battlefield in a dress? Do you want to run naked just because you're enjoying the breeze? Han Fei said absent-mindedly, it'll look better if you cut it above your knees. Xie Qingqing thought for a moment and asked, wouldn't it be less defensive? Han Fei rolled his eyes. You're not going to the battlefield in this dress. Why do you care about defense? It's fine as long as it looks good. Lower the neckline. Perfect. Well, I'm really in a hurry. Xie Qingqing grabbed Han Fei. That does make sense. I'm a refiner, and I'm not going to the battlefield. TSK, TSK. You have good eyes. Alright, Boss Beihua is in the refining hall. You can go. The refining hall. Uncle Beihua, do you still need to refine? Xie Qingqing remarked, Boss Beihua is exchanging refining experiences with several 5-star refiners today. Xiao Guan and Jia are watching. You're out on a mission, so you don't know. Han Fei was stunned. A meeting of 5-star refiners? Big Sister Qingqing, why don't you go? Xie Qingqing shrugged. It happens once every 3 months. I've been there several times. I don't understand, so I might as well not go. Han Fei immediately ran off. Sister Qingqing, I'm leaving. Bye. Xie Qingqing shook her head helplessly and muttered, even if I go, I won't understand. Shorten the skirt. It seemed like a good suggestion. Would it look bad if the neckline was too low? Give it a try. When Han Fei arrived at the refining hall, he was immediately recognized. Immediately, someone shouted, Master Han Fei, when are we going to refine? Do you still have 1 dragon? Someone chased after Han Fei and asked, Master Han Fei, let's not be greedy. A 20% discount is fine too. When are you going to hang up your stall? Han Fei rolled his eyes. Do you want to flip the cards? Han Fei immediately said, I've been really busy recently. Wait a moment, everybody. I'm going to the lecture first. Getting rid of those people, Han Fei rushed to the shop assistant and threw 5 high-quality pearls at her. Where's the meeting of 5-star refiners? The girl was stunned for a moment and asked in shock, Master Han Fei? Oh, it's in the number 8 refining room. There's someone waiting at the door. Han Fei turned around and ran to the refining hall. This time, on this trip, he truly understood how powerful a powerful weapon was. For example, Snowmorn, a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Han Fei felt that when he could use it freely one day, he wouldn't need to use his brain in a fight at all. Besides, was the semi-divine weapon that he had just gotten different from a divine weapon? Of course, he knew that it was a semi-divine weapon, but even though it was not a real divine weapon, it was still very powerful and much better than his other weapons. Also, the guy's golden battle suit and harpoon were really strong. If he hadn't crushed it, he wouldn't have been able to defeat it. At the door of the number 8 refining room, 2 dignified 2-star refiners were watching at the door. They were both in their early 20s. When Han Fei strode over, the 2 of them were stunned. Stop, what are you doing? Han Fei was stunned for a moment and quickly took out his 3-star refiner certificate. Okay. I'm going to the lecture. Hiss. At the door, the 2 refiners looked at each other in bewilderment. A 3-star refiner? Han Fei asked, can I go in now? One of them immediately smiled and said, yes, of course. Please come in. After Han Fei stepped in, the other person immediately asked, who is this? Why haven't we seen such a young 3-star refiner before? Have you forgotten the newcomer a while ago? The one who claims to be a one-stop shop for refining and spirit sealing and offers a 30% discount every day. It's him. Han Fei. Of course. Guan Qingyan and Mu Jia are already inside. Now, another young one has popped up. Who else can it be but Han Fei? TSK. This guy is truly ruthless. I'm told that he only takes 2 sets of materials and offers a 30% discount. Even those with a low success rate dare not do that. Hee. Not just that. Even 4-star refiners dare not do that sometimes. If they don't take enough materials and make a mistake, or if the spirit sealing isn't done well, their reputation will be tarnished. While the 2 refiners clicked their tongues in amazement, Han Fei had already appeared in the refining room. After a glance, Han Fei saw 100 people gathered here. Because the refining room itself wasn't large, the number 8 refining room was only about 300 square meters. He couldn't even see the hundreds of people in the room. Voices came out of the room. Beihua said, "So, when we refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons, there are still a lot of details that we can improve. Those details are necessary for you to be promoted to 4-star refiners." A middle-aged man next to him smiled. Master Beihua is right. It's almost impossible for a 3-star refiner to refine a divine weapon. However, let me make it clear to all of you that there is a chance of becoming a 4-star blacksmith. Even if they can't be refined into a divine weapon, they can at least push ultra-quality spiritual weapons to a new height. An old man smiled. That's right. This is the semi-divine weapon that we often talk about. It's a semi-divine weapon. In fact, it's infinitely close to a divine weapon, but it can't be turned into a divine weapon because of the poor quality of the materials. We've discussed this question countless times. However, recently, I'm told that Guan Qingyan, a genius refiner, has made a semi-divine weapon. Guan Qingyan, what do you think? Guan Qingyan rose and took out a shield. I sealed a level 47 mutant silver-scaled fish in this shield. I've done my best on the spiritual weapon itself, and I've tried my best to seal creatures. However, it's still an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. So, I thought of the enhancement of arrays. But I've experimented many times, and the enhancement of a single array can only make the ultra-quality spiritual weapon slightly more powerful, but not enough to make it into an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. So, I asked an array master to carve 9 serial defense arrays on it. When the arrays are carved, the semi-divine weapon will be ready. Wow! Someone was startled. 9 interlocking arrays will do. Guan Qingyan nodded. Yes, 9. Someone said, that's not right. We've also made arrays. Not to mention 9, we've even tried a dozen arrays, but no semi-divine weapon has ever been produced. Guan Qingyan nodded. It's not a set of arrays, it's a serial array. The 9 arrays are combined into one, but it's actually just one array. Someone sighed. Guan, which array master did you find to make this? Guan Qingyan shook his head. I can't say. Someone asked, how many such array masters do we have on the Scattered Stars Island? Guan Qingyan nodded. No more than 5. Immediately, someone was discouraged. That's useless. There are no more than 5 in the entire Scattered Stars Island. He must be an array master. Guan Qingyan nodded. It's useful. When I was discussing arrays with Han Fei proposed a theory called replication. It means to use a single serial array as a template. If you remember this array, you can always make exactly the same weapon. As long as you can make one, you can make many. Someone exclaimed, so, in fact, we only need to remember one array, and we can make many identical semi-divine weapons? Someone sighed. So, the key to making semi-divine weapons is not us refiners, but array masters? No, no. While everyone was discussing fervently, they suddenly heard a voice from above their heads. Everyone's first reaction was, why is there someone above their heads? Then they all looked up, only to see a spider-like guy hanging on the ceiling and crawling forward. Han Fei took out a hand and said, Old Guan, there's something wrong with this method. I've tried it. He came up with this method from old Jiang when he was refining the Overlord. However, he had tried it several times and found that the replication array didn't work. Guan Qingyan's eyes lit up when he saw Han Fei. Brother Han, you came at the right time. Why doesn't this method work? Many people were stunned and looked up at the ceiling. Is this Han Fei? The genius refiner? Is it true that this guy became a 3-star refiner faster than Guan Qingyan? Why is he hanging on the ceiling? Han Fei simply jumped down from the ceiling and dashed over. Old Guan, have you made a second one? Guan Qingyan frowned. Not yet. It's not easy to find a creature with a sealed spirit. Han Fei patted his shoulder. That's right. It's not easy to make a second one. Beihua and the other old men couldn't help but say, Han Fei. We've considered your idea, and it's indeed feasible. We never thought of merging arrays before. So, we never made semi-divine weapons. However, the first semi-divine weapon made of ultra-quality materials has already been made. Han Fei waved his hand. Uncle Beihua, there's actually a problem. I've tried it, and there's only one way to successfully replicate it. Nothing else works. Beihua asked, what is it? Guan Qingyan asked, what is it? Everyone asked, what is it? The seventh watch, it's the seventh watch today, I'm drinking now, congratulations, everyone. May the purple air come from the east and the neon lights rise outside the window in the coming year. May you drink to your heart's content and be at peace with the world. I wish you all eternal youth and a carefree and unfettered time of warmth. I wish all of you, your eyes are bright, and the road ahead is without wind and waves. I wish all of you, the lights are waning, and the beauties will hold hands and grow old together. May flowers bloom in the coming year and smile at the world. May you stay in bed because it's cold outside and pneumonia is dangerous. Where are the tickets? Although it's only 7, there will be more tomorrow. I've handed in the tickets. I should be drinking now, going home to sleep, and continuing to write at night. End of this chapter. Chapter 705. Han Fei shook his head. Since when was Guan Qingyan so impatient? At first, he was the one who proposed the concept of array fusion. Han Fei said with a bitter smile, you might not believe it if I tell you. That is, you can simply set up an array when you're crafting an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. However, once the spiritual weapon is crafted, it's completely different to set up an array. Guan Qingyan asked, you've tried it? How did it work? Han Fei asked, did the array master you found set up the array on his own and didn't explain it to you? Guan Qingyan's face slightly changed. Yes, that's true. Beihua asked, why not? What's the logic? Han Fei said, to set up the array, I need to understand the characteristics of the spiritual weapon's materials. When I draw the array, I need to adjust the strength and method of the array with my own feelings. So, the array master can draw it, but we can't duplicate it. Guan Qingyan asked eagerly, Brother Han, have you figured out a solution? Han Fei waved his hand. I may have to learn arrays first. Also, the smaller the weapon, the more difficult it will be to draw an array. The shield is so big that it's easy to draw it, but it's difficult to draw a sword or a knife. Guan Qingyan nodded. Of course. Mu Jia, suddenly said, can't we first draw a fusion chain formation, then refine it with top-grade materials, and then fuse it into the weapon? Can't we use the array as a material and refine it with the spirit refining technique? Han Fei, however, was refreshed. Shoot! That's right. Why didn't I think of that? Guan Qingyan also shivered. This method may work. Beihua and the other 2 5-star refiners changed their expressions and looked at each other. This guy was truly a genius. He wasn't called a genius refiner for nothing. His way of thinking was beyond anyone's imagination. What kind of a genius refiner was it to craft something as intangible as an array with tangible materials? Beihua suddenly rose. Okay, everybody, today's meeting is over. We'll tell you the result after we have an experiment. Let's go. Immediately, a refiner asked, Master Beihua, are we going to experiment now? Can we stay and observe? Before Beihua said anything, the oldest refiner had already berated him. You'll only affect the experiment if there are so many people here. If this method succeeds, you will definitely be notified. Han Fei was stunned. Hey! Weren't they supposed to be in class? How did it end? Beihua glanced at Han Fei casually. It's already over. After that, we'll talk about the refining method of semi-divine weapons. Han Fei, after everybody left, Beihua finally said, Han Fei, aren't you on a mission? Why are you back so soon? My mission is over. Didn't he hear that there was going to be an exchange meeting here? So I came. Beihua introduced. Now that you're here, let me introduce you. This is Li Feiyun, the head of the refining hall in the fragmentary Star City, a 5-star blacksmith. Han Fei cupped his fists. Nice to meet you, senior. The middle-aged man next to Beihua nodded at Han Fei casually. Young man, you're smart. Very good. Beihua continued, this is Wang Su, a 5-star blacksmith in charge of the refining halls in the north, south, east, and west. He's also my teacher. Han Fei said, nice to meet you, Grandpa. Wang Su scratched his beard and smiled. I'm told that you became a 3-star blacksmith in only 1 month. You're very talented. It will be a great achievement if you can solve the problem of semi-divine weapons. Try your best. Han Fei suddenly asked, seniors, wouldn't it be faster and more efficient if you do it on your own? Beihua shook his head. We're actually already capable of refining semi-divine weapons. However, even if we do it, it's only because of the materials and the creatures sealed in them, so it's not really a breakthrough. Right now, there are few 5-star blacksmiths on the Scattered Stars Island. We can't give the methods of 5-star blacksmiths to 3-star blacksmiths. That's meaningless. They won't be able to refine what they're supposed to. Wang Su nodded. That's right. It's really up to you to finish it. If you can do it, most 3-star blacksmiths can too. Li Yunfei also said, let's just wait and see how it turns out. Beihua, they're all your men. We'll leave them alone for now. Beihua nodded with a smile and saw them out. Mu Jia said, liar, I heard that you went to the deep sea. Did you fight? Like last time. Han Fei was lost for words. Don't call me a liar. What did I lie to you about? Mu Jia pouted. I like it. That's what I call you. You're my senior sister. Han Fei ignored her and looked at Guan Qingyan. Old Guan, when did you refine a semi-divine weapon? Not bad. Guan Qingyan shook his head casually. I didn't refine a semi-divine weapon. It only appeared when the array was branded on the shield. Beihua, on the other hand, looked at Han Fei weirdly when he came in. Are you really here for the conference? Han Fei grinned. Oh. By the way, I brought back a weapon. Then, Han Fei took out the golden harpoon and knocked it on the ground. He knocked on the ground, and immediately, a wave of air rippled out. In fact, Han Fei had a battle suit and a harpoon, but nobody knew it. Han Fei couldn't tell them. Mu Jia exclaimed, ah. Is this a semi-divine weapon used by a half-mermaid heavenly talent? Guan Qingyan hurried over. Did you snatch a semi-divine weapon? For a moment, Mu Jia and Guan Qingyan's eyes were all focused on Han Fei's golden harpoon. For some reason, there was no data in Han Fei's eyes. Therefore, he couldn't see the information of this weapon. A semi-divine weapon was indeed a semi-divine weapon, but only in battle would he find that even he had to unleash his full strength to resist it. Han Fei wondered if it was a semi-divine weapon, which couldn't be fully controlled by a hanging fisher. Therefore, in the hands of the half-mermaids, it didn't show any amazing power. Otherwise, even 1% of the power of a sea-quelling bizarre treasure would be terrifying. Beihua said, it's indeed a semi-divine weapon, a standard semi-divine weapon made by sea demons. The three of them immediately looked up at Beihua. Guan Qingyan asked, standard? Is it mass-produced? The power of this weapon is indeed terrifying. I guess the half-mermaids can't exert their full power, right? Beihua nodded. It should be. In fact, we've looted a lot of golden battle suits and golden harpoons. At first, we thought they were divine weapons, but when we reforged them, we found that they were not divine weapons, but semi-divine weapons. Besides, every one of them is made in the same way, which means that the sea demons have mastered the way to mass-produce semi-divine weapons. Han Fei asked, mass production. Beihua said with a smile, even if it's mass production, it's still a semi-divine weapon. After all, it's beyond the boundary of ultra-quality spiritual weapons and can already be called divine weapons. However, it's not as good as a low-quality divine weapon. Han Fei thought for a moment. The Overlord was a semi-divine weapon. He had plagiarized Mu Jia's idea, combined it with old Zhang's method of drawing arrays, and sealed the blood fiend octopus in it, making the Overlord a real semi-divine weapon. This was also one of Han Fei's important trump cards. Han Fei sighed. If only we knew how to mass-produce them. Otherwise, we can only loot more for our own use. Guan Qingyan said, it can't be used directly. We need to reforge it. Han Fei was stunned. Why? Isn't it a semi-divine weapon? Mu Jia mocked. It's a weapon of sea demons after all. Their refining method is completely different from ours. Besides, the sea demons' weapons are not only used with spiritual energy but also with demonic qi. How can you use it without demonic qi? Han Fei asked in surprise, is that so? Beihua nodded. Yes, we don't know the refining method of sea demons. If we want to use it, we can only reforge it. After all, the materials are still the same. However, if we reforge it, it will become an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. Han Fei was speechless. It will be downgraded? Mu Jia nodded. Of course. After all, the materials used to forge this golden weapon are only mixed with some ultra-quality materials, not all divine weapon materials. If we reforge it badly, it will certainly be downgraded. Han Fei was speechless. He had been so happy for a long time. He had hidden a set, but now it seemed that he had to reforge it. However, Han Fei thought for a moment. It wasn't troublesome to reforge it. If he couldn't reforge it, he could just give it to the demon purification pot. In the future, if he mastered the fusion method of the chain formation, it should not be a big problem to refine semi-divine weapons. Han Fei came here full of interest, but after getting the exact answer, he lost interest. Anyway, he didn't have the ability to refine semi-divine weapons now. However, he had obtained the Ocean Book. This thing was a treasure. If he studied it carefully, he would definitely make great progress on the path of arrays. Besides, he was very busy now. In addition to the Ocean Book, he also had to study the soul-splitting technique. In terms of quality, the soul-splitting technique was much better than the Great Soul Attachment technique he got from the Undersea City. The Great Soul Attachment technique had many disadvantages. After all, it was only a heaven-level, mid-quality weapon, and one's soul might be destroyed. But this soul-splitting technique was different. It was a heaven-level, divine-quality weapon. It wasn't just a little bit higher. It felt like it was just short of having an immortal soul. Learning about semi-divine weapons, Han Fei immediately said, well, Uncle Beihua, you go ahead. I have something else to do. I'm leaving. Guan Qingyan hurriedly shouted, Brother Han, should we study the method of refining semi-divine weapons? After all, Jia made an excellent suggestion. Han Fei patted Guan Qingyan's shoulder, only to get his hand covered in frost. Old Guan, what's wrong with you? It's so cold. Guan Qingyan said solemnly, it's just the technique I practice. It's fine. Han Fei said, anyway, Mu Jia has put forward her idea. Why don't you try it yourself? You can try it first. Let me know if you succeed. I'm a little busy now. See you. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.